Hello again, everybody. Welcome back.
What's up, chat?
Yeah. Yes.
There you go.
Suri, we got another, this is part 3 of our series where, at the end of this, we'll be 30% of the way through our list of 100 favorite films.
And it doesn't even seem like that many, dude. I look at that list, it shrinks every week. I pull them in, I have my 100, I move them into the top 10s, and I'm like, that's not that many movies. I've seen all these movies again and again and again and again.
Yeah, it's really an exercise.
Yeah.
You gotta, pull everything in. It's a lot. It's a lot of work.
And then you forget how many movies you've actually seen. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. And then to take, thousands and then make 100 out of that.
Oh boy.
It's hard, yeah. Okay. So, I guess we should probably start again with just the disclaimer. Hey, this is not like a definitive sent down from God on the tablets.
Correct.
Definitive thing. This is just our subjective opinions.
Right. And it's at that it's even like more kind of it's our subjective opinions as of, this month of this year, and these are the movies that we saw. There's other movies that we haven't seen yet that are probably would end up on this list, things like that. For me in particular, the way I do it is a lot more about like feel and place and time and like where I was when I saw these movies and kind of the impact it had on me. I try not to intellectualize it too much. And it's more just kind of like that way. So it's more of just like a fun exercise. And we get to point out some really interesting movies to each other and hopefully to other people. Yeah,
exactly. This is just about, discussing stuff, having fun with lists. I think lists can be fun.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to rage and be like, how dare you not have this movie, or how dare you?
Oh, what the fuck is 8mm?
Yeah, 8mm. That movie sucked. You suck. I hate Joel Schumacher. It's like, okay, dude, you're taking it to an 11. Just dial it down a little bit. All right, dial it down. So this is just for fun. So
yeah.
All right. I guess I'll get started. So, you started last time.
Right.
I'll start this time. So we're at number 80.
Go ahead.
Right? We're at number 80. So my number 80 is a German film by Rainer Werner Fassbinder called Ali Fears the Soul.
Yes. I haven't seen that one, but I am familiar with his work.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So this film is about a widowed German woman who falls in love with a younger Moroccan guest worker. Mm-hmm. And their relationship is met with a lot of hostility by society at large, and that has effects on both of them, basically. And this film is pretty much it's a homage to the Douglas Sirk kind of films. So cool. Imitation of Life and these other he was a very kind of famous director for doing these kind of almost sort of melodramatic but very visually stunning
Fassbinder,
films.
Yeah, melodramatic, supremely depressing in that German way of just we'll take the Douglas Sirk kind of. It's like the American melodramas that are they're sad but they're ultimately happy, and then Fassbinder takes them and he's just like, nah.
Yeah, let's make them really actually sad. Let's not do the Hollywood in the end we all.
In the end, ultimately, it's everyone can.
Love conquers all. It's maybe not.
Maybe not.
I really like this film. When I saw it, it really definitely sort of had a strong impact on me. I felt like this film thematically does a great job of sort of, I guess, pointing out when you think of it on a meta level, the type of things that society imposes on people, the ideas and how they can affect people, mentally and physically. In this film, basically the Moroccan guy is he's actually physically affected by how negatively society views him. And, just we're seeing pretty much just it's part of their relationship and how it goes and how it even gets into her head, how it's hard to just really have love even when society just makes it difficult for you to coexist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's sort of a thing that there's a lot of different ways that I think that can connect, because it can be, a racial thing. It can be whatever. There's a lot of different ways you're society is not allowing me to be who I want. And it's destroying my life. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this film's about, I'd say.
Is it it's contemporary, right? It's set in the time that it was made, basically.
So it's like the 70s Germany.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's just I thought it was really well done, really well directed, like the way that he like used the camera. Because like again, it's a very sort of subtle story, and it's just about these two characters and their love and how basically everyone's like, this is not okay, and this is weird, because like she's older and he's like very young, and he's like very muscular and masculine, and it's just like. I don't know.
There's like a class thing going on.
Oh yeah. That too, yeah. Because again, he's like a guest worker, right?
Yeah.
And she's a widowed person who's like, she's also, I think she like cleans houses or windows or something like that. Was like her job that she was doing, but again, she's like I don't know. She's a part of German society and she's considered legitimate, and this guy is considered an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for me on a lot of levels. I thought it was really well directed and well acted.
Yeah, that he didn't really miss that Fassbinder guy.
Yeah, and what's funny too is like I was reading. Apparently, he made the film almost like it said it was like sort of as I wouldn't say experiment, but it was just like I have 3 weeks of free time. I'm just gonna shoot a movie.
Oh wow, yeah, I love to hear those stories of these like powerhouse direct or just like art, like the guys who just like they know their craft so well and they're just like, I'm gonna paint with a different brush this time and I'm just gonna make a movie in 3 weeks. That's awesome, and it turns out to be a classic.
Yeah, so we just kind of came up with the scenario. He knew I want to do something like Douglas Sirk, and I'm going to get a couple of actors and do something really simple and just shoot it in 2.5 weeks or whatever.
It's
an amazing movie. It's an amazing movie. Yeah. So yeah, it just goes to show you, like you said, when you're an excellent at your craft and you're a master, you can just spit out these films that are like unbelievable.
I know. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's my number 80. Ali, Fear Eats the Soul.
Cool. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure my numbers got a little mixed up. I do have 10 movies. I just don't know why the numbers, whatever. Anyways.
I feel you.
Yeah. I'll take you from one of the things as I'm exploring this list and kind of picking them and moving them around and stuff, I'm realizing that a lot of the movies that made it onto my list are just ones that I've like repeat viewing like throughout my life, like at different parts. And they kind of, I have like more of like a 3D kind of understanding of like I saw them at this age and maybe it's intended for this age and then this age and this age. So that was interesting. That's just like like a tangent, like a little tidbit I noticed about making my lists is to me like a big deal was just like not necessarily rewatchability, but like if I've seen a thing so many times, then it's probably important to me. So number 80 is without a doubt To Live and Die in LA by, of course, Billy Friedkin, one of the greats. This is Billy Friedkin's like he basically went back to like the French Connection days and he was like, I'm gonna just do another one of those. I'm gonna do another chase scene. It's gonna be the biggest chase scene ever put to film. I think those were like words that were said. And he, by God, he did it. I don't know why this movie's not talked about as much. I can tell you that it is the most 80s thing ever, like possible. It just can't be like I can close my eyes and I can hear that like song that plays in the beginning, like dun, 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 dun. Like it's so fucking like 80s. It's synthesizers. I think Wang Chung did the score for this movie. The fucking pop group from the 80s did the score, so like that should tell you like the vibes of it. And it's very like so it's in LA, right? It's very like orange tinted, it's very like bright, sunny, concrete, and it's about so one of my favorite actors that only did like 2 or 3 movies and then he went to TV, William Peterson, known for CSI. He is phenomenal in this movie. Not that like his acting is great, but his presence is solid. It's solid. He's wearing like, it's just the most 80s thing ever. He's wearing, jeans up to his waist, basically. Like his dick is just like, it's like it's the tightest, skinniest jeans possible. So you can see the outline of his dick, things like that. I don't know why I'm mentioning that, but basically they're Secret Service agents or whatever. And they're trying to infiltrate this money laundering ring run by Willem Dafoe. And his first role first like big Hollywood role, and he is cracked. I mean, from the word go, this guy is cracked out insane. Like Willem Dafoe in this movie, he he does all the faces. He screaming in this movie. He's doing everything in this movie. This movie has full frontal nudity. It's got just people getting burned alive, heads being cut off, because money laundering turns out to be pretty dirty business. There's a scene, there's a montage in here of Willem Dafoe actually not laundering, counterfeiting, actually like printing $100 bills, and it showed in detail the process. And I remember reading that there was a lawsuit that came out, like a really big lawsuit about this movie that teaching people how to make counterfeit bills. But I love the vibe of it. I love how like just gung ho it is about, like, just again, like William Friedkin kind of at the height of his powers. He's just like, I'm going to make another one. It's going to be the greatest movie of all time. And everything is just very like excessive. That chase scene, it goes on for like 5 minutes longer than it should. All the characters are like larger than life. Willem Dafoe is like this crazy villain. He's kind of a Bond villain, honestly, in this. So it's just like a weird little crime movie that, like, on paper seems like a pretty generic plot line, but the way that it's executed is so just drenched in 1980s culture and excess and cocaine and, the sun shining on LA and homeless people and dirtiness. And it's got kind of everything in it. And I just love this movie. I love it for its soundtrack. I love it for the vibes. And it's, as somebody who learned about American culture by way of other movies, this is one of those movies. This is one of those movies that is like, it's like, I feel like this movie was referenced a lot with like Michael Mann movies around the same time, because Michael Mann's movies are very saturated, very like colorful, very noir, stylish. And this is kind of like Billy Friedkin's version of that, except he can't help himself and he has to show you dicks and he has to show you decapitations and stuff. So I love it for all of those reasons. It's amazing. To Live and Die in LA is number 80 for sure.
Cool. Yeah. I love a good chase scene. So if you can hook me with that, that's for sure.
If you haven't seen this movie, at least watch the chase scene, because it is fucking insane. It's all done. It predates Terminator 2, obviously, but it starts on the streets, it goes on the freeway, it ends up in the LA River, and they hang out in the LA River for a while, and then they come out on like some other streets, and I think that's where it ends. But like, it just really takes you throughout all of LA, and it's obviously all done practically because Friedkin is insane. And I mean, it's the 80s, so of course they did it practically, but like, they shot that shit for weeks. Yeah.
I love that stuff. I mean, like, it takes a lot. Even just like a small little thing, it takes a lot to pull off. Any kind of chase scene.
And that's why I love like the enthusiasm that this movie has, is just like, and again, like the story and everything, it's not the greatest thing in the world. It has a really cool twist ending, I think. Like, not twist as in like a Shyamalan twist of like, whoa, I can't believe it. It's just like, it's like a moral twist almost. It's just like, I thought we were with this guy, and then so yeah, it's really cool. I recommend it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. All right. So my number 79, this is a film that we talked about on our list of the decade of the 2010s. So this is Boyhood from Richard Linklater.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the, again, like I described it, it's the dramatic equivalent of Avatar. It's like, how do you get, how do you like, okay, in a drama, how do we do something that's so massively difficult to achieve that in and of itself, it's like blows your mind?
Yeah.
Well, let's take an actor. Let's shoot that actor over the course of 12 years, and like basically once a year. Not just like, well, we'll shoot him once and then we'll shoot him 12 years later. Like every single year, we have to shoot a scene with him and other actors. That is crazy that he pulled that off.
Yeah.
The fact that he pulled it. Because like I remember like seeing this thing where, they were talking about like, you can't even sign a contract that says, yes, I will appear every year in a film. That is illegal. It is illegal.
Not only that, for a child actor, when they started, like I can't imagine what it's like for those parents to go to the agency and it's like, I'm assuming he talked with them, but he's just like, yeah, he's gonna need to come back every single year. Like if he decides he hates acting at age 12, I don't give a shit. We're making this movie.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would expect at that point the film would fall through or something. I don't know, to get more money. I don't know.
You're right. There's a lot of things. I think the last time we spoke about this movie is like there's so many things that had to go right for this to just get made.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things, like one little thing, or at least you'd have to pivot. You'd have to do a hard pivot in the story.
Yeah.
Which I guess could be okay, but how can you plan for something like this? Like film a lot of it's all about planning. At least like, okay, I'm going to try and do this story. Yeah.
Well, Linklater is the right choice for this because he doesn't plan his shit mostly. I mean, unless he's doing a Hollywood movie or whatever, like School of Rock or something. Like most of his movies are, not necessarily improvised, but like kind of spitballed in a way, like the concept of scenarios.
It's very like flowy, it's like
flowy.
It's like vignettes, a series of vignettes. Yeah, like Slacker, and I love the Before trilogy.
Before, yeah,
yeah, and this film is just unbelievable because I feel like it really, really does the best job, pretty much, of showing the coming of age of a person, right? Because it's just a series of things. It's like, I was young and I was playing, and I love Dragon Ball Z, and I liked doing stuff with my friends. Yeah. And then my mom like got divorced, and then my mom married this other dude who was a dick, and then we had to leave him. Yeah, and then we had to leave him, and then all of a sudden he's in college and he's an adult and he's like on a date with this girl, and it's like, whoa, I remember this dude as a child, as a literal child. Yeah. And then you see him as an adult, and it's like, that's life though. That is literally life.
Yeah.
It's cool. Just like that. It's just like boom, and like, all of a sudden people, your kids are going off to college, and you're like, I just had this person. I remember when they were born. I remember when they couldn't feed themselves. Right. I remember when I had to change their diaper. I remember when they like pissed on the floor and all this.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, movies try to give you that sense, but not. Yeah, it's different with this. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, because parents say that all the time. Is like, or when you meet a relative that you haven't seen in 12 years, like, oh, last time I saw you, you were this high, and it's like, shut up, Grandpa. Like, I don't know what that means. So yeah, that this does give you a little bit of that kind of just by watching this one movie.
Yeah, you watch this one movie and you kind of feel that thing, that universal thing that we all have, that time is going to, it is the inevitable thing. We are all going to grow up and die, and there's going to be a change along the way of other people that were around.
Thanks. I hate it.
Yeah, but this does it in an upbeat way.
It does, of course.
There are other films that they're like, you are going to die.
I like those ones.
Yeah. The ending of this film is like really something too. It really is, like that last vignette where he's like in college and they're like out looking at the stars or some shit, and it's like, dude, this.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping, like, I think I was at that point when I saw this movie. Like, I was just done with college or whatever when it came out, and I was just like, well, what I want to see what's next. I need the movie to show me what's next, because I can't be left alone with this ponderous bullshit. Like, my life's already weird enough.
Yeah, exactly. But that's life, right? You're just like,
yeah,
it's a whole new. I feel like what this movie kind of gets right to is like, there are phases of your life, right? There's like the phase when you were in college. There's like the phase when you were in high school. There's when you got your first job, and then you like, like you got your first job and it sucks and people are horrible and you're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
Like, is this life? Is this the world? Yeah.
Is this it? Then get me out of here,
Yeah, dude. And I'm glad you brought this movie up, and I think I said this last time too. Like, I'm glad you like it so much and we can talk about it, because again, I've seen so many takes on this movie that it's all it has going for it is the gimmick, and past the gimmick, it's not very deep, or it's not very interesting, or it falters here and there. But like, I don't know. I think it's a good movie altogether, but I've seen a lot of people talk shit about this one. It's just like, it wouldn't have gotten so much praise if it wasn't for the gimmick. And it's like, maybe, but
I think there's a level of, I think there's cynicism about stuff like this. And I also think, look, if you're someone who's like, you're under 30, you don't have kids, you don't like have any attachments, you're not married. I don't know if this really connects with you or if it can. Like if you, again, like I think we brought this up in some film last week, but like imagine watching this after you've like had a kid and your kid just went to college and they're gone.
Oh, yeah.
Like how is this film this film affects you differently?
Yeah, you crying through that bucket of ice cream the whole time.
Yeah, especially because like at the end it's him by himself and he's an adult and he's, you know, changed. He's changed all throughout this film. And like I think that's, you know, the other side. I think this does a good job of that too, from the parents' side, because like, you know, they're divorced, but like both the mom and the dad, they have those moments where they're like, you know, I've seen you change so much and I'm so happy to see where you're at.
Yeah, it has like a sweet, the last I want to like 30 minutes, 40 minutes of the movie is like very sweet in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, if you don't like, if you're a single person and you're like trying to hustle and, you know, you're that busy, like, this is not it's not going to connect with you yet. But you know, if things change and then you have those experiences, then you know, maybe you're going to understand like why this film does what it does and does it so well. You know, and again, like there's some films you got to find at the right time in your life. You know, and I feel like sort of similar with The Irishman. Like, yeah, if you're a 20-something kid, and you're like, it's fucking old guys, I don't care.
Yeah,
he's gonna die. So what?
So true.
Yeah,
so
when you're 70 or whatever, and your kids hate you because of something you did, you're like, fuck, that's me. Yeah, I didn't understand. I don't understand. Like, and that's when it really hits you, when you're like, whoa, those things I did when I was 30 or 40, when I dumped my kids and I didn't care for them because I felt that something else was more important. Now it comes back, and now that I think about my legacy, this thing that's bigger than me, that goes on beyond me, and I can't connect with it, then you get it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I really, really appreciate this movie. I think it works. And again, you gotta, it really hits that spot of understanding like what that kind of universal thing about what happens when people grow older and that when you change and when you come of age, as it were. It really gets it right. And it's you know, it's just an amazing thing that he was able to pull this off. Absolutely amazing. Yeah,
there's so many coming of age movies, and they're all some of them are really great. Like, we're not talking about like the Stand By Me's and stuff like that. Like, there's other ones, the more indie ones or more personal ones. Like a couple of years ago, there was Eighth Grade was really good. I really like that one. And you know, Lady Bird had all this Oscar buzz and stuff, and those are great movies on their own. But I think the gargantuan task that this movie just set for itself, I think it's like I would call this like the Braveheart of like coming of age movies, you know, like it's the biggest production by far. And it succeeds, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I just unbelievable that he was able to do something like this. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's like when, you know, people do shit with special effects and stuff like that, or like they'll film a chase scene or something. This is like the emotional version of that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And he could only do it by basically getting an actor and then getting his friends. You know, because that's what he did. He got Ethan Hawke, his friend.
Yeah, you just got to make sure your friends are, you know, A-list actors.
It helps a lot.
Yeah,
it helps a lot. Yeah, I mean, the Before trilogy started because they were at Venice or whatever, and they just like, hey, let's shoot a movie. Yeah. You mean Julie Depley? Let's just come up with a script.
I love it. Love that stuff.
Unbelievable. Some people, they just got it, you know, so they just have it.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's my number 79.
Number 79. All right. My number 79 is a coming of age story about nah, not really. This is interchangeable with the first one of its series. I had to put one on here because, again, the rewatchability of these things and the time when I saw them is like it would not complete my personality profile if I didn't include Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets specifically. There's other movies. There's 8 of these fucking movies. But I feel like I know a lot of people love Prisoner of Azkaban and they jerk themselves off because he, you know, fucking falls on Cuarón and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily care for that stuff. I think the Chris Columbus movies, the first two movies, and just Chris Columbus in general, the way that he's able to tap into that like childhood wonder type movies. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I saw a lot of his movies when I was a kid. I saw Home Alone when I was a kid. I saw Mrs. Doubtfire when I was a kid. And I was able to put myself in the shoes of those kids and be like, the maid looks funny, but she's nice. And it turns out to be Robin Williams, stuff like that. Harry Potter, I think the first one obviously succeeded in the most mind-blowing way of like creating this world, just the world building of it.
Yeah.
Without going into too much of the reading the books and the, supplemental stuff and playing video games, whatever the case may be, you get the sense that the world is like fully kind of fleshed out and lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the second movie, that's the reason it's on my list, is that it just builds on that and it's a lot darker. And obviously, I like that more. I generally hate kids' movies, and I don't like kids in movies. Kids in movies usually take me out of them. So there's something about it. Like something like Boyhood, obviously, is interesting because the kid grows up, and so you get to see from every angle. You get to see this kid. But kids in movies generally, to me, like fucking, I don't like them. But these three kids, whoever the casting director was, I think they did a good job because obviously they're still big to this day. But yeah, I don't know. Like I don't have to tell you how good Harry Potter is, but specifically Chamber of Secrets, I like it because it's got that. It's right before they went a little bit, they got creative with it. They got Alfonso Cuarón, and then they got, they did the angsty teenage one, and then they just started making them basically on an assembly line after that.
Yes, the David Yates assembly line. Right,
and they're not bad, but but definitely the first two movies, and I like Chamber of Secrets more because again, it's darker. You got the girl that killed herself in the bathroom that like is hanging out. They introduce all of these crazy characters. The basilisk is a badass monster. The diary that bleeds when you stab it, shit like that, I can get into. And it's all with kids, and it's done in a way that it doesn't feel like it's the Goonies or whatever. It feels like the stakes feel on, like do you feel like these characters could die at any moment? And yeah, just something about the wonder, it's almost Spielberg-like, I want to say, these first two movies. Yeah. The way that
they wanted him to direct the movies. And he was very close to doing it, but he did.
I'm sure.
He did AI instead. But
it's not a coincidence that John Williams wrote the score on these movies. Like it was going for that approach very, very heavily. But I think Chris Columbus fucking nailed it. I think he nailed it, man. And I really love these first two movies. And Chamber of Secrets is on my list, 79, because it's probably my favorite Harry Potter movie. I do like garbage, and so I like Goblet of Fire a lot as well, because it's the trashy high school movie, but like it's not particularly nuanced at all. But Chamber of Secrets, I think it's my favorite, and I think it's the best one. But we can argue about this shit all day. But it's probably my favorite, and that's why it's on here.
I feel like I really need to watch all of these again. So like I remember, so at the time, this came out. So this one came out in 2002.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the first one came out in 2001. That was an interesting year. So like I don't know what grade I was, probably 7th grade or whatever. I had a friend who was like really into fantasy and reading and stuff, and like so he put me onto this, and he also like made me go see the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, those were the ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like both of these I really didn't know anything about before I saw like the movies and stuff, and then I read the books. And like the books for me, again, I feel like every sort of American around my age, like Harry Potter is like literally basically gospel. It is the thing that we all read and know.
And for an illiterate son of a bitch like me, I also read the books off of the back of just these first two movies when I moved here in 2005. I think that she was writing one of the last ones, and I just decided to read all of them. Because I was like, I'm practicing my English, lol. I'm going to read all these books.
Yeah. So for me, and this is sort of like an unfortunate problem I think that I have, like I get very biased by whatever the image that's put into my head is about a thing. And that's so why I kind of like don't like to read the book of a movie because like because there's the J.K. Rowling idea of the movie. or whatever, the thing that the story, the way the story unfolds in your head. And, when you're biased by that, you kind of like, well, you didn't do that. You get in this fucking nerdy, stupid shit. Just everyone does like, whoa, this didn't happen. And it just like kind of ruins it. Even ruined it for myself, which gets me mad.
Well, yeah. It's by the time I saw, what was it, Half-Blood Prince, I had read the books. Yeah. And I was just like, no, he's supposed to be bleeding out on the floor with all of his fucking guts out. Like, why are you not showing this to me, Hollywood? And then, yeah,
and it just kind of ruins it. So I feel like I need to watch them again without the book bias. And I think I'll enjoy them more, which isn't to say that I did not enjoy them. I definitely watched all of them and liked all of them. Because, I mean, it's the whole, like you said, the world building of Harry Potter.
Specifically these first two movies, like, it is so like masterful because they have a limited amount of time and they have to explain to you the mechanics of how this world works without just having people talking at the screen the entire time. They have to show you these things. They have to show you kind of not necessarily the art style, that's like a more movie term, but like kind of the look of the world. It's not just witches on brooms and shit like that, because that's what you would think when you hear wizard. I'm a wizard. I'm a what? So I think because I saw them before I had read the books, obviously, and just again they hold up in a way that like it fills out the world without you having to read the book at all. Like it creates a clear enough picture in a way that, like, again, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are just kind of movies that happen to take place in this world, but these first two movies really take their time to like ease you into it in a really cool way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a gargantuan task.
I don't envy it.
Because Rowling just like creates, and she actually did a pretty good job in the books too of like kind of starting you small, and it's like here's more and more and more and more and more, and like as you go on book by book, they're building more. Like, oh, there's more about Quidditch, here's more about this, here's more about the past. And you're just like, it starts with, okay, here's the guy who's the chosen one. Someone tried to kill him. He failed, but the guy is still around. And there's this wizarding world. But that's all you really need to know, right?
Yeah.
He's the chosen one. He needs to go to school, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then we just start getting more, right? And it's a great series. And, it's just like the impact that it had on a generation of people is like massive.
Exactly. And I would say, even for someone who, because there's people who are just like, they don't care about it. It's just, kids movies or wizard movies. I'm not interested about it. That's fair. But I would say divorced from the context of the entire series and the merchandise and everything you've ever heard about these movies, I still think on their own, the first two movies, and in particular Chamber of Secrets, I would advocate for it as like just a good movie on its own. Like, it doesn't need to be part of a series. It has a beginning, middle, and end. And, because that was kind of the structure in the beginning, which is like Harry starts at home and then he gets like whisked away or whatever. He goes to school. He has these crazy adventures. They learn something about themselves and then he goes back for the summer. So I think on its own, it holds up perfectly beautifully. You don't have to know anything about Harry Potter. You could just watch one of these two movies. Yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so Chamber of Secrets.
Yes.
Nice. So, sort of in my next film, for number 78, is another kind of long time spanning film / miniseries. So this is Scenes from a Marriage by Ingmar Bergman. Yeah.
Yes.
And so this is this is an interesting film. So again, this basically depicts this this couple and their going through a divorce. Basically, they're slowly going through a divorce because their marriage sucks, and we just see how it degenerates. This movie is really special because, like, again, like this is a film that a lot of like the Linklaters and people like that said this is the film that made me want to do, the Before trilogies and the Boyhoods and this other kind of stuff.
I feel like it was talked about recently because of Marriage Story too, if I remember correctly.
Marriage Story feels like a vignette of this film with a different thematic purpose. But this film, like, Bergman is such a great, like, just writer and director in general. Like, he's so efficiently able to like get to these kind of universal kind of truths about the human experience. And this just really, because it's not just about divorce or whatever. It's about like, how people deal with like love and loneliness and like fulfillment and like, like all these big questions, right? That we all face in life.
Mm-hmm.
And this series this film it gets right to it. And the performances are amazing in this film. They're all feel very real, like a little too real.
Yeah.
But they're very real.
Yeah. It's that kind of acting we were talking about that, like, the Europeans have been doing it forever, but like specifically in Hollywood, it didn't really kind of hit until the late 60s, early 70s. And this is like a 70s Swedish movie. And you got Liv Ullmann in there and whoever else, and they're so fucking good in this movie.
Yeah, they're so good. Because like I think for them it was like the material is so kind of truthful to their experience that it's just like it's being more than acting.
And he knows these people, like he's worked with them before, so it's not like he's the writer director, so he's able to kind of tweak things to kind of get to certain truths in these actors' lives, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's basically like a troupe of them, right? Like the sort of the Swedish thing. Apparently, there's a film that's going to come out called Birdman Island about basically he would go to an island to write his next film whenever. So it's about some. So I'm not sure what time period it's about, but
is it like one of those historical kind of fiction type things based on like this myth of this guy goes to an island to write movies, and then like it stars Bergman but is like a movie version of him, and like they took liberties with it? Is that one of those things?
Probably, yeah, it's something like that. I'm looking because like I think Mia Wasikowska is going to be in it and some other people.
Oh, sick.
So I was like, just at the cast alone, I was like, I'm in. This sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But I suspect it's gonna like the thematic, right? The thematic thing is like, these are all these people who kind of like really know each other really well, and then it's like almost like we're creating the art that's about our lives. Yeah. And the things we know about ourselves.
It's great. It's like the Linklater example. It's like, it's great when all of these, again, really talented A-list type people all know each other, and they're all about it in the same way. They're not all chasing fame or doing this or that, and some of them may be, but like it's cool when you have a troupe of people like that and you're able to make like really, really honest work together. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love like when these guys, the stuff they do together. You're gonna see some other Bergman films on my list. But yeah, I just, especially like with Liv Ullmann and Bibi Andersson, who are both in this, like they're just like it's like you get some, and Max von Sydow. I feel like those are like his
main characters.
They always pop. There's at least one of them, and usually more than one.
Yeah, select player 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah. Which player, or would you like multiple? Game? Yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, Scenes from a Marriage. This is my my number 78. I think it's a great, amazing film. And again, very similar to the previous film. Like just this thing that kind of shows you, a long period of people's lives and kind of how they change. And sort of the thematic thing, that there is about what time does to people as they, because the end of this film is like really, like they come back together after they've been divorced for 20 years, and they sort of have all these questions about their marriage. Like, was it, like she's just like, have I ever been loved? I don't think I have. And it's just like really sad and confusing. They kind of he kind of has this thing like, well, we had a different sort of love for each other. It wasn't totally fake, but it was, it's just, and again, like that happens for a lot of people in life, like that's their experience of being married or whatever. Like, yeah. Anyway, so that's my number 78, Scenes from a Marriage.
Yeah, I love these types of movies that are just not necessarily like the big kind of like the sprawling about someone's life thing, but just like situational type movies where it's not necessarily, again, it's not very plot based or anything. We're not trying to figure out like how we're going to print money or whatever. I like it when we're just kind of in a couple different locations and we're just in these people's everyday lives. I love movies about everyday life, because everyday life to me is like every time I watch a movie, like a big Transformers movie or something, when I get giddy when I see like the parents' house or whatever, because I'm like, I can instantly relate to this, and he's in his room and there's a fucking robot in his room, and what is he gonna do? Like, I like those types of just getting into people's houses. I don't know, it sounds weird, it sounds creepy. I'm gonna stop talking, but I like the intimate kind of about people's lives thing a lot, and thanks for reminding me, because I want to watch this movie again. Like this, and it reminds me of like a lot of Nick Cassavetes movies are like that, are like this, I should say. So yeah,
Absolutely.
good shit. Cool. So that was number 78.
That was number 78. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, my numbers are going to catch up at some point. My number 78 is the movie that before I had committed to, like, I want to make movies, you know, like I'm a movie fan, but before I really got into kind of like the process or like more the artistic side of it, of what goes into these things. I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I was just like, to me, the special effects of any movie, like a Tenet is nice and you can look at it and you can say, wow, that 747 exploded. But I always notice audiences, or when I'm watching movies with friends, they are more wrapped up in like when there's a close up on someone's face and it's like a really pivotal moment. Like that almost feels like it's got more pull to it than like the big set pieces sometimes. And so to me, like the actors are the special effects, and the movie that like is the ultimate, like the actors are the special effects in recent times, at least for me, was Birdman. That's on my Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And I love this movie. I mean, it's obviously had a lot of praise and it's won Oscars and whatever, and Michael Keaton's back, yada 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 yada. It's a little meta in that way. But it's about a troupe of actors, and it takes itself to the extreme. It's almost like a comedy. It's almost like a caricature of like what these insane, fucking crazed artists are like. And everybody in this movie is so good. They're so good. Everybody gets a scene. Everybody, you know, from the leading men to fucking Zach Galifianakis to Andrea Riseborough, who we know I love. Everybody's got like really good kind of star making scenes. Yeah. But it's all like A-listers, obviously, right? So there's plenty of movies like this that were made before, but I like that they were able to take all of these big famous people and just make a movie about actors and sell it to the world. And it won a lot of Oscars, and a lot of people saw it and a lot of people liked it. I believe, yeah. And I mean, of course, you can talk about the gimmick again. It's one of those like shot by Chivo, I think is what they call him. That's like his nickname, the Emmanuel Lubezki, I think.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do the one take movie and it's going to be all this and that. But like for me, what it's the performances, and it's like the kind of all of the insanity and like how manic each one of these characters is and how they play off of each other. All the scenes between Edward Norton and Michael Keaton and when they're fighting and shit, it's so funny. And it's so well done. And I've seen this movie over and over and over again. And it kind of, it has a lot of the pop stuff that we're still into, I think, to this day. It's got like it's got a trick ending. It's got, again, you know, the down on his luck guy who used to be in superhero movies, and now it's like he's doing theater, and like who gives a fuck about theater, right? But the whole movie is about theater. So it's very meta. It's very cool. It's very smart, I think. But it's very poppy. You know, it's not too deep. It doesn't put too many people off. But I think, if nothing else, just the performances in this movie, just to see people just acting for the sake of acting, I love it. It's so funny. There's the scenes where, what was it? Naomi Watts feels so like pushed away from her husband, right? Who's supposed to be Edward Norton, I think. And then it gets taken to the cliche that like she ends up kissing like one of her co-stars, like a woman, right? Is like as an experimental thing. It's so fun. It's just funny in that way. If you know anything about like actors and theater acting, it's funny in that way. And yeah, I love Birdman. It had to make my list because I've seen it so many times over since it came out. I've seen it over and over and over again, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. But the writing is funny, and the performances are amazing. So I love Birdman.
Yeah, it's a great film. I just love to see the two of them, like the DP and yeah, like when they work together, dude, they do some incredible stuff. They also work together on The Revenant, I believe.
The Revenant, yeah.
Yeah, they really like absolutely kill it when they work together.
Yeah.
And this film is beautifully shot, and yeah, it's very funny. Like the whole Birdman thing.
It's ridiculous.
It's hilarious.
It's like a commentary on like all of this stuff and that's what I like. I like it's almost a satire, and I like that a lot about it, because it could have taken itself seriously, and it could have been really, really, really pretentious. And I think they knew that, and that's why they took it. They took it in the direction of, let's just make fun of this. Like the Edward Norton character in this movie, he's just like, oh, he's like this wounded actor, you know, who like needs to gain he used to get all these great reviews or whatever. It's like the most textbook like scenarios for all of these types of people, but they're played off very seriously, and it's almost like a satire. It's funny.
I feel like a lot of it is like they're kind of playing themselves, but like if you did like a fan fiction of themselves, you know, you change the name, of the character that they're playing, you know, instead of Batman it's Birdman. And it's cool.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like, but the Edward Norton character, it's so perfect too, because that's really kind of him, real life, and
exactly, yeah,
you know, and it's so that meta stuff and that kind of, and they're making fun of themselves.
That's what I like. Yeah,
they're making fun of themselves instead of like kind of, you know, instead of trying to be pretentious, like you said. So like, oh yeah, well, like, you know,
like no, like I know we've all done like multi-million-dollar movies, billion-dollar movies, but like we're really actors at our core.
Yeah,
like it feels like this is that movie, but it's taking the piss out of itself.
Yeah, it could be that movie. Good, but instead it's like making fun of that idea while also kind of being true to the artistic need to express yourself, you know.
Yeah, it takes care of all of the things, and again, like the craft wise, like it's spotless, like the cinematography and the way that it's the way that everything is choreographed with the sound mixing and everything. Like I remember there's like the score, you know, like as the camera moves, like when he's on the city, you know, like there's a guy playing a street drum, and it kind of fades into the score. We see the street drum, then it fades out of the score as we move along. Stuff like that. It's like really, like you can tell that these are like really, really high level professionals doing this. Yeah. But they're doing it, I don't know, for funsies almost. It's cool.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I'm not sure what the origin of this was, but it feels like, you know, again, you just get these people that are this talented together.
Yeah, right.
You're going to get a good film.
Exactly, yeah. And I know it's one of the more recent movies that are on this list, but I remember just ever since I saw it, I was just like, I get it. Like you put like Emma Stone's face on the screen, and that's all you need. That's all you need. I don't need to see.
That's the end of that film.
Yeah,
right. Like we don't know what happened. There are theories, but we just see her.
Yeah, and because the movie doesn't have any like crazy special effects or anything. Like The Revenant, I feel like they took it a step further, and they were like kind of like the Billy Friedkin with To Live and Die in LA. Like, I'm gonna show you my muscles now, and I'm gonna film in the wilderness with natural lighting, and I'm gonna get Leonardo DiCaprio to do crazy things. And it's like, you can do that, and that's cool. But you know, sometimes it's cool to just have like a smaller scale thing and like a more fun, honest thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Leo jump off a cliff on a horse, and then fight a bear.
Like, I get it, bro. Like, you can do it. Like, I get it. You have the skills and the power to do that. But like, yeah, sometimes I like the one.
The Revenant, like that whole film was made to win an Oscar for Leo. Like that was the whole reason that film existed.
For sure, yeah.
And then, you know, kind of the cool thing is Lubezki and Cuarón, they get to do all the Iñárritu, yeah, they get to do all this crazy shit, you know, in the meanwhile. But yeah, anyway, so
yeah, no, cool for stuff. Sure. But that's what was that, 78?
Yeah, those were 78. Yeah. All right, cool. So so my number 77 is a very, very, very unique film, the first Charlie Kaufman film on my list. This is Being John Malkovich.
Ah, you son of a bitch! I was gonna put that on. This was gonna be this week, and I decided to move it around. So I'm glad
we get to talk about it.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy, dude. I just cut it last minute.
This movie is so weird. I love it. This movie is so weird. He is such a weird guy, and what I really like about, like, you know, sitting now that we've seen, because we reviewed a film this year by him. I'm thinking of Ending Things, and he like, I feel like the more we see his films, like the more we see into his mind. He's a very strange person. It's the best way of putting it. But a very unique perspective on the world. And it's just like what's interesting, like, so what's this film about, right? So this dude who's a puppeteer, who's hella broke. It's about a guy who's a fucking puppeteer.
When you say it out loud like that, yeah.
But that's what he's a puppeteer, right?
I know.
And then he finds this portal that goes into the head of John Malkovich.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's a puppeteer, he's able to control John Malkovich. But what the film is really about, a guy who falls in love with someone who's not his wife,
mm-hmm.
and he wants to be with her, but in the end, he can't be with her. His wife ends up with the person he's in love with, and he sees their love, and he can never be a part of it. It's a tragic love story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a tragic love story wrapped up in some weird ass shit. Hella weird shit.
The device of this of the guy, the puppeteer who works in this like in between half level, half floor of a company, right? Everybody has to crouch down and shit. Like the concept of it, the device that all of this is wrapped around is so weird and interesting.
It's so weird. I remember I watched this film and I remember getting to the point where they talk about the whole weird ass plot line with these people who are burrowing themselves into the brain of a person so they can live forever. And I literally paused the film. I'm like, what the fuck? What? It's just so mind-bogglingly absurd. It's so absurd.
I think what sells it, though, and this is kind of a similar example to Birdman in a way, what sells all the craziness is that it's polished in such a way, and it's got like really, really famous people in it. Like at the time in the 90s, like, you know, John Cusack, fucking Cameron Diaz, Catherine Keener, all these people, like John Malkovich, they were huge. So they sell that idea, or at least they keep you invested, because you're like, why would fucking John Cusack do this shit like right now? I think he just come off a Con Air or something. Like this is craziness. You know, I think that helps the cast.
It is absolute craziness. Craziness. But that's just how his mind works. That's how he's like, if you give him a simple idea, if you give Charlie Kaufman a simple idea, he's going to find a weird, crazy, convoluted way, but it's just selling.
Yeah.
How can I show a tragedy about someone who falls in love?
Usually. Yeah.
Well, just because, right? It's like, I'm guessing he would think like, what's the worst way that I could see someone see someone that I love be with someone that I used to love, and like not being able to like share in that love, you know? And it's like, yeah, if I was stuck in someone's mind and I had no control, that would be horrible. And that's what happens at the end of this movie.
But
it's
I think,
crazy complicated way.
Yeah, and I think we can't not mention that, like, again, I think we talked about this because we talked about Charlie Kaufman a lot, but like if he was left to his own devices, this movie would have just gone on for 3.5 hours, and it would have been even weirder, I think, and more convoluted. But I think the genius of it is the marriage of Charlie Kaufman and Spike Jonze, because Spike Jonze is a crazy motherfucker too, and he's got his start in, you know, making all these disgusting skateboarding videos for Big Brother magazine and stuff, and kind of launching the Jackass crew essentially. And he was shooting music videos for like all these, you know, Fatboy Slim and stuff like that in the 90s. And so he has a perspective of like a very postmodern, like, nothing matters, everything is kind of crazy bullshit, like let's just get weird with it thing. I think he was able to rein in some of the like high level concepts and just like somehow sell this movie, because ultimately it came out like through Universal or something. So
yeah, there was a lot. I was reading some stuff about it. One of my favorite things was like the head of New Line, who's a very kind of actually pretty important guy in Hollywood history. He's the reason why we got the Lord of the Rings in the version that it did, plus some other stuff, a lot of horror movies, things like that. But he probably didn't read the script. He had someone tell him what the concept was, and you know what, basically who would be the team behind it. And the thing he said was, why can't the film be being Tom Cruise? That was his. He's like, okay, I'll do this movie, but we need an A-list person.
Yeah. That's funny. I thought
that was hilarious. That was the head of New Line said that shit.
That's
so I think
funny.
I think I don't think that the biggest problem with this was like the Charlie Kaufman stuff being too big. I think the problem is people don't. Well, no, I don't think that this started as like a 300-page weirdo opus.
Sure, yeah.
I think that this was always sort of what it is in the form now. I think they had discussions about who should be the lead.
That right.
You know, so, and even John Malkovich was kind of like, look, if this movie bombs, I'm fucked.
This could look like the worst, most over-the-top vanity project of all time. Yeah,
I don't even know if it would just be weird, and then it's like the being John Malkovich movie sucks, and it's John Malkovich, right? So it's just
Malkovich. Yeah.
Like, yeah, and it's so weird. It's just so weird that like you're like, who's the audience for this? Who does this connect with? Are people going to look past all the weirdness and understand what's going on? I feel like that's always sort of the problem in a sort of big way with the stuff that he's doing, because he's so beyond, I think, what most
just
people
regular structure.
Yeah. He's so beyond that. He's so into these other things that are just he's not interested in, like, I don't know, the kind of like just like the stuff that we consume on a daily basis. The stories. If you think of like the easy,
the plot
simple
diagrams and shit. Yeah,
that you would think, how are people going to connect with this story? But that's what I love about Charlie Kaufman, is that he's throwing all of these really out there ideas, but it's serving a purpose to connect us with a story idea in a way that we haven't seen before.
No, I think you're right. I think the idea that it's not I didn't mean to say that it was like it started out as a 300-page thing. It could have ended up that way maybe, but I think you're right. I think it did start out with like, you know, I want to tell this tragic love story and I want to frame it in a way of like what's the most heartbreaking way to realize that you're never going to attain something or whatever, is to see it through someone else's eyes. Like maybe that's where it started, and then maybe once he hooked up with some of these music video weirdos and Spike Jonze comes in, he's just like John Malkovich, and they're like, what? You know, and then it goes from there. So I wonder what like the inception of that was, but definitely like the marriage of that. Cause you know, Charlie Kaufman's made movies on his own and they're pretty fucking weird. they get more complicated and more convoluted, I feel like. But I think this is just like the right amount. It's like you said, it's like having to strike that balance of like, making this palatable to like normal audiences, not to art house people exclusively and not to, you know, like action movie people exclusively, but just kind of make it work. And again, I think that getting a Cameron Diaz in there and getting a John Cusack and whatever is very helpful for that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I was reading some stuff about, so like the script in its original form, whatever it was, went around Hollywood a lot. At the time, he wrote this on spec, but you know, people were like, "Yeah, it's interesting, but what the fuck?"
Yeah,
right, like that. And you know, that totally makes sense as a reaction to me, because I'd be like, "I would love to make this movie. I would love to have someone else give me money to make this movie. If I'm the guy who's gonna press a button and give $10 million into this movie." I'm like, you know, if I, you know, I don't know, if I'm Jeff Bezos and I have a bunch of money, okay. But if I'm like staking my claim as a person who produces films and I'm trying to like actually have a business that works and not have a write-off, I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah.
I'm a little skeptical. And so that was kind of the thing. So this thing went around, and then so Charlie sent this to Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola, who was like, that's interesting. Let me give it to my daughter's boyfriend and have him read it. And then that's how Spike first read this script. And I did not know this. Yes. Wow. So it has to do with, you know, him dating
fucking Francis, dude.
I know.
He is the Godfather. He is the Godfather. You come to me and I will solve your fucking problem. I'll give the world the good movies they deserve.
Yeah. And so, you know, then this film, and also, so apparently John Cusack told around this time. So this was actually a really good question he brought up. Like, why did he do this? Well, he told his like, I don't know, his manager or whoever, find the weirdest thing, the weirdest script out there and show it to me. And he found this.
That's great.
And he showed it to him and he auditioned for it and he got it. So this is a weird confluence of stuff. The fact that this film even got made at all.
Yeah. And this is definitely one of those planets aligned situations.
Yeah, and you know, we're going to talk about more Charlie Kaufman films in this. on my side. Hopefully, maybe on your side too. We'll see.
Mhm.
But there's so many of these things about, these things that we see him talking about. One of them that comes up, like, when John Malkovich goes into himself and everyone's John Malkovich. Later on, so there's a film, Anna Melissa, where the character suffers from this thing. It's called the Fergoli delusion, which is you think everyone's the same person, or they're disguised as that. They're that person disguised as someone else. And so that's sort of, I don't know if that's something he's afraid of in real life. It seems like it, because that stuff kind of comes up a lot.
Yeah, he seems pretty manic from everything I've read. Like he's not like he's got maybe that's not the right word, but like he's got a lot of these. He's inside his own head a lot, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I find watching his films, they're so unique, they're so different, but he is a consummate artist. He's a professional. He has a strong handle on the craft of how to write. Yeah.
And it's amazing to see a guy who thinks so differently, but is a master of craft.
Yeah. I get that 100%. There's no reason why, because I can say weird shit too. Like I can say that, my nightstand, is a portal to whatever, and it like I'll do all this crazy stuff, but like it has a purpose and an end goal and something that connects to it, and that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I just was blown away when I saw this film. I was just like, what?
Same. I think I saw it on a whim. I think I was going through like a John Cusack phase. I was definitely going through a John Cusack phase. And this was just on the filmography. And I was like, I like John Malkovich. I like Cusack. Like, I wonder what this is about. And that was the first, Charlie Kaufman / Spike Jonze movie that I saw. And then like, again, I was just like, yes, this is for me. Give me more weird shit, please.
Yeah, just give us more of whatever is coming out of this guy's head.
Yeah, both of them, honest, because I love both of them. I love Spike Jonze movies too.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really good seeing him with someone who can like bring a visual kind of sort of way to all this craziness.
It's helpful. It's very helpful because you have to have someone who is able to decipher the fucking ancient texts that this guy is writing on the walls to kind of make it like poppy and palatable.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is crazy. It is crazy. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else I can really say about this film. I think it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's definitely worth a watch. I mean, everybody should watch this movie, even if you don't think you'll like it. Just give it a try, because I didn't know what the hell it was doing, and the first 20 minutes of this movie I was just like, what the fuck? But it makes sense. It all clicks.
Yeah, it all comes together in the end, and that's the thing too. Like, I feel like a lot of his movie, he's doing all this stuff, but it's to create an emotional connection for us at some point in the end, or in multiple places. And he likes the tragedies. He's that type of guy. It's like, let's get sad. Let's get really sad here.
Yeah.
He loves that sadness. He loves to put you there.
Yeah. I have one of his movies on my list. It's gonna be.
I appreciate that, because there's. I don't know why, but I just want to bring up Tenet. Right, like Tenet, there's all this shit going on. There's all these explosions.
It's the only movie that came out in 2020, Ibrahim.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I'm gonna drive a 747 into this thing, and it's like, okay, all this stuff happened, but why? Why should I care? Why should I care?
Because.
But like this, it's like there's all this weirdness. But he's doing all this weirdness because this person wants to have a relationship with someone. Yeah,
it's very cool. You can keep scratching, and there's an answer waiting behind every door, which is cool.
Yeah. So that's my number 77 being John Malkovich.
Cool. I'm glad you brought it up, because again, I was thinking about putting this, because again, I do the thing where like I have a couple filmmakers that I really, really like, and everything else is kind of ancillary to me, and I've seen every single one of their movies and this and that, and I'm like, I can't put all of them because there's a lot of movies. And so John Malkovich was like about to be on this list today, and then it got axed in favor of something else. So I'm glad we got to talk about it. Number 77.
I think it should be your 76.
My 76.
Well, no. It should be because I went first, right? So yeah, it should be your 77.
Yeah, my 77 is a very, very, very simple little movie. You may have heard of it. It made some money, I think. John Carpenter's Halloween, the original. It's so iconic. It's so iconic. But beyond that, beyond the music and the Michael Myers and the mask and the knife and the boiler suit and everything, it's such a cool little movie because they knew they didn't have a lot of money. So what they chose to do is just make it look really, really good. They went anamorphic. They had the best fucking film stock they could afford and the best lenses, and they made it look cinematic AF for what is essentially just a generic slasher movie plot. I mean, it is very, very generic. For most of the runtime of this movie, nothing really happens. You're just kind of hanging out with these young people and, whatever. But that's what I like about it so much. That's what I like about Halloween. And, of course, there's a billion other John Carpenter movies that I love and everybody else loves. But I tend to be for Birdman, you brought up The Revenant is like a bigger, you could say better version of that. But I like the scaled back stuff. I like the simple stuff because it makes me feel like maybe on one hand, it makes me feel like it's attainable. But also, again, I just like hanging out in people's houses more than I like being on these like grand operatic type adventures or whatever. Because Halloween is essentially, it takes place in a couple blocks of this like suburb. And we just go from the school to the streets to the house, whatever. Donald Pleasant's out there. There's an asylum. There's like a whole side story there. But it's a simple thing. There's a killer. There's a little bit of a backstory. He killed his sister or whatever on Halloween, and he escapes from a mental institution. And holy shit, there's a killer on the loose. Whatever. And but again, they didn't have a lot of money. They kept it very simple. They made us because the thing about slasher movies is this is very early on, right? In the late 70s, I mean, there were horror movies being made, but they were different. They were about like witchcraft and they were exploitation movies, like girls in cages and shit like that. This was more like it made it feel like it could happen, in anyone's suburb, in anyone's thing, even though it's cheesy as hell. But I just love that they took that care because there's a 4K version of this movie that just got restored recently, and it looks so good. It looks so cinematic. Everything about it. The story itself is kind of cinematic, but like just the look of it is so cool. It's basically like the Alien of slasher movies is what I mean, Alien you could say is a slasher movie too, just set in space. So yeah, there's many reasons to love Halloween, but I love the simplicity of it, of just, let's just take, high school girl, babysitters, whatever. And there's a killer on the loose and there's a cop who's trying to stop them, and that's pretty much it. Before we get too grandiose. And again, because John Carpenter did this and he did The Thing. And then he made movies about, the occult and ghosts and all of this crazy shit. But I like the simplicity of just, let's take a simple concept, let's make it look really, really fucking good, really clean, and kind of sell people on this idea and just keep them on the edge of their seat. Because it's something about the setting of this, the suburb and the houses and the trick-or-treaters and the kids. It makes you feel like, like this is just like any other movie, but innocent people are getting murdered and stuff. And so I'm kind of more invested in seeing this killer stopped. I don't know. There's a lot to say about Halloween, but I just love the simplicity of it, and I love how good it looks.
Mm-hmm. John Carpenter is like the master of the the low budget film.
Yeah,
I feel like the less money you give him, the better he can make a film. Just from the most
more creative he gets, at least. Yeah,
absolutely. And I remember, I think the biggest film he really did was A Big Trouble in Little China. He said there was some film he did, and then he said the suits were just a disaster. They fucked them over. They meddled. But yeah, when he just is left to his devices, he is so creative. He's so creative. And I mean, Halloween is just of a genre that is full of all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of stuff, and most of that stuff comes after this movie.
Yes,
and it looks cheaper and it feels cheaper. I think that I can't say enough about like how polished they made such like a very generic run of the mill story look. Because it sells it. Because, like I said, there's so many other low rent grindhouse, exploitation type movies that were coming out that are whatever. But this movie, it had an air of like, this is a real movie.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it looks good. And like, what I like too is, the like Michael Myers. What is Michael Myers? Who knows?
Force of nature.
Yeah, he's a force of nature. It's really kind of scary because he's a guy. Supposedly he's a guy, but like they can't kill this guy. He just keeps coming.
Yeah,
he doesn't say shit. He doesn't say anything.
It's not explained. Yeah,
no, and that's great. That's like one of the best parts about this movie is like it's a human. We think, but we don't know. He just keeps coming. He keeps killing. They keep trying to kill him, and he's whatever it is. He keeps coming back. There's some good scares in this movie too.
And again, like the Harry Potter example I had, like. Divorced from the rest of the series, pretend the sequels don't exist. I'm not saying watch Halloween and then watch Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. Because then it gets weird and stupid, and then we get into the cheap 80s schlock, like the really cheap looking stuff.
This movie like H2O and this other
and I've seen them all and whatever, it's great. But like this movie has a great ending because, like you said, like Michael Myers is what the fuck, do you think they killed him? Everyone, movie's resolved. Donald Pleasance just goes to do a double take. The killer's gone. Bwah! That's like a really, like for 1978, that's such a cool way to just bookend it. This like weird little movie that came out of nowhere. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
because like it's not about making a sequel. It's like, the dude's in your neighborhood now.
Exactly.
And when Halloween rolls around, he's going to slit your throat.
Yeah.
And of course, people are going to wear the Michael Myers stuff.
Yeah.
For Halloween immediately, right? After that happens, you're like, I got to be Michael Myers for Halloween.
Yeah. There's a great moment in, I don't know if it was Halloween 2 or 4 or one of those. I have to give them credit because they, even back then, they got meta with it because they had somebody wearing a Michael Myers costume on Halloween in the movie, and the cops kill that fucking kid because they think it's the real Michael Myers. And it's a great like little kind of what have we done moment within the series of itself is cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I heard that they made this movie because so John Carpenter looking through like movie titles, and he found at this point there was no other film called Halloween. Ever been made.
I read that too.
Like, we gotta make Halloween. We gotta make that's like printing money.
Yeah, because that's the elbow grease aspect of this movie, right? Not a lot of money, but like you find these things that help it along. You're like, the name is Halloween. It's free. We can have that, and that's gonna sell copies.
We're gonna get Jamie Lee Curtis, who's basically royalty. She's gonna be in the movie,
right.
Before she'd probably been in anything big. So.
Yeah, exactly. And,
that's like a surefire success for a horror movie. Get someone who's kind of big, someone who's big but they're young before they blow up. Get the good title, Psycho, Halloween.
Again, you pay for the cameras, you pay for the film stock because you know that we're gonna make it, a movie with the fucking Scream royalty, right? So
yeah, cool. Yeah, so that was your number 77.
Yeah, good shit. Halloween.
Okay, so my number 76. This is a movie from the 50s, directed by Mr. Kazan, Elia Kazan. It's a movie. I don't know if a lot of people know this movie. Actually, it's not one you would think, but it's called A Face in the Crowd.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
Yeah, The Face in the Crowd is one of my. It's a really amazing film. So this film is basically about this guy who's he's just some random like talk show host in some hodunk part of nowhere in Arkansas or something, and then some woman basically says, hey, like we should kind of promote this guy and give him a bigger platform, and he evolves into this raging demagogue populist who ends up becoming extremely powerful.
Oh no.
Having a huge amount of power. And then you see this guy's transformation from hodunk hillbilly nobody to megalomaniac, super powerful, and he like becomes bad. Like it brings out all the worst parts of him, gaining all the stardom and fame and power. And I thought like this kind of, I watched this at a time where I don't know, this like the populist demagogue thing was kind of making a resurgence, and I thought, oh well, this is something universal, but it's, I don't know, it's gonna go away or whatever. I feel like it's gotten worse in just the human thing, and it's a universal thing basically.
Yeah,
the raging person who says things that people want to hear even though they're not true.
Yeah,
this is a universal human problem, and this film tackles that in the American context. While also the other thing too is like, I think it does a good job of like sort of the antecedents to that is the American fame thing. We have this fetishization of people that are famous and stars and like people that it tackles both of those things at the same time, because it once he becomes big, he becomes different, and it brings out what was always a part of him, which is this megalomania, and he's like, oh, I deserve this and this entitlement. I feel like that's just a perfect example of like if there was like a Arabian Nights of American Stories, this would be a part of it. But this is like how fame destroys you. Yeah.
It's a classic tale, right? It's a tale as old as time, but like specifically very American.
Because like around this time, radio was a big thing, and especially in the 30s. I was just reading about this. In the 30s, it was the Wild Wild West, man. There were people out there saying all kinds of crazy shit and getting huge platforms, and people, because it was the Depression and people were desperate, and then people would say, blah blah blah. It's we got to do this, we got to do that, and leading people. They basically the Pied Pipers, just leading people into disastrous, ruinous ideas, and creating conflict. This film really sort of tackles that, but also, again, like basically the guy gets big, and then people the people that prop him up are like there's this big thing that happens at the beginning where he does some ads for different, companies like mattresses or some shit like that. And he talks in a certain way where the advertisers think that he's putting their product down, but like it actually increases sales because he's able to like kind of connect with certain people. That's why they like him, right? So there's all these rich people like, this guy is useful because he'll talk directly to the consumer and he'll get him to buy our stuff. So I don't care if he's going to cause, destruction, as long as he's making us, rich. We're cool with it.
And to this day, that's still how it works, which is amazing and frightening. And yeah.
And of course his downfall is once he starts making people money, then they're like, okay, now we're trying.
I have no use for him.
Yeah. So I really love this film because it just hits all that stuff. Demagoguery, the populism, the corruption of celebrity and fame, how it degrades people, how it just reveals them. It hits all of that just like spot on. And of course it's an Elia Kazan film, so the acting is incredible.
Unfuckwithable.
Unfuckwithable. Absolutely. He doesn't matter who it is, he will get a good performance out of it.
Exactly. Oh man, one of the greats for sure.
So that's my number 76. I don't know if you have any comments or anything else.
Well, I haven't seen that film yet. Obviously, big fan of Kazan, specifically for the acting styles that because again, I'm into that. I like seeing like all the European stuff, like we were talking about the Bergmans and the Fellinis and whatever, like all the new wave, like the Italian new wave and the French new wave. They've always been able to get naturalistic performances, more or less. But to see like every once in a while, like a US, like a big Hollywood, like classic Hollywood director, to extract some of these like theater-like performances, as opposed to just like, yes, I have one, and no, my name is this, and stuff like that. That kind of style of acting, it's cool. So it's just another one on my list, basically.
And so the person who plays the lead here is actually Andy Griffin.
Right.
And he's really good. He plays this guy, Lonesome Rhodes, this, just basically just a hodunk dude. And there's some other, I think, was it Walter Matthau? I think is his name. He's in this.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he is.
I just shot straight to the top of my list. I love Walter Matthau.
Yeah, he sort of plays he sees the path, and he's like, dude, you got to cut this guy, and then no one listens for a while, but after he just stabs enough people in the back and goes so megalomaniacal that they just have to stop him. It's great. It's a great film.
And it's funny that these movies get made, and as far back as the 50s, these movies get made, and people watch them, and they're like, "Wow, yeah, like that. Well, that's what a lesson." And then it just continues exactly the same every single time.
Yeah, it doesn't change. It's just the medium has changed, but the behavior does not change. Now you can go on TikTok or whatever. You can go on YouTube, go on Facebook. Facebook is a den of insanity.
Ugh.
Facebook is like if people then knew what you were going to be able to do,
it would make their brains implode. Yeah, like all the people that were writing these kinds of stories and movies back then, holy shit, like they would have, if to harness 10% of their energy, to write something like about Facebook, with one of those 50s writers, that would be amazing.
And that's why this stuff really connects with me, because it's like, dude, this is a human thing.
Yeah.
This is wired into humans. If you give them a certain type of environment, you get this behavior is going to spit out.
It emerges. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's the dude who's on the corner of the street on the little soapbox spouting stuff, or he's on the radio, or he's got a Facebook page, or he's on TikTok. It's a human thing. It's a human behavior, and we have to be aware of it. And stories are one way of sort of hopefully trying to, make people aware of it. We still seem to be going into that same behavior over and over and over again, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like you said, it's almost like it's a natural in the purest sense of the word human thing. It's just our nature, and it comes out, and we keep telling the story over and over again, and we heed it, we listen to it, but it's just repeats.
So someone was asking what film we're talking about. We're talking about this film from Elie Kazan, Facing the Crowd, I think it's from like 56
or 57.
Yeah, 56 or 57. It's a great film. I think it really, again, it hits on that kind of moral thing really well. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like there's some that try to do this, but there are some that just don't do it as well. This one does it really well with great acting, great performances. Love it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just one on my list basically, as I go through the Kazan canon, as it were. Cool. That was 76, right?
76, that's right.
All right. My number 76 of all time is David Fincher, who we've been talking about. David Fincher's The Game.
Ooh, The Game.
Yeah,
oh,
which
man.
is so goddamn underrated. I think there's a pattern I'm noticing in my list where like I will bring up a filmmaker, and then you'll think two or three things, and then I pick the thing that like people now they're talking about it, but like at the time it wasn't like the biggest success or whatever. Like I said, Friedkin, and I said To Live and Die in LA instead of French Connection, shit like that. Mm-hmm. I love The Game because it felt to me at the time like a small-ish kind of movie that nobody really talked about, and I saw it, of course, in like the early 2000s or whatever on video, and it had Michael Douglas in it. I was like, how can this possibly fail? I love Michael Douglas and I love mystery movies, but I didn't really know who David Fincher was and what he had done. I'm pretty sure this is the first David Fincher movie I ever saw. And boy, what a ride it is. And I think the thing that stands out about this movie is the mystery. It's very, it's almost kind of like a Hitchcockian kind of a premise of this guy. He's like a big banker or whatever. And he meets with, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but he meets with his brother or whatever. And his brother's like, yo, I'm going to hook you up with this company. And they do these crazy, like in real life, type of meta game things, I think today we would call them alternate reality games, ARGs. So he's like, no, okay, whatever, bro. So he goes home, and then like his TV starts talking to him, and all this weird shit's like starts happening. And it's interesting for a couple reasons. It's done in the late 90s, so everything about this movie is like the all of the kind of crazy mind fuckery stuff is done by way of like late 90s technology. So like the TV being able to see him and talk to him is horrifying in that context. To us, it's just like, oh, I left my laptop camera on. I guess it was hacked. Like, you can rationalize it a little bit more, but at the time, you know, like, this guy turns on the cable news and the cable news starts talking to him, and that's kind of a big deal. He's got a cell phone in his car. Like, there's a lot of like silly late 90s kind of tech in this movie, but it's done. I mean, it's David Fincher, right? So it's very moody, very dark. It's one of the darker kind of his movies, and it's very mysterious, and the performances in this are amazing. Sean Penn in particular. Sean Penn kind of for a while there, like, just for bit parts like this, he just couldn't miss. You know, he was just like the character that you wanted in all of these movies. Deborah Kara Unger didn't make too many movies, but she has like a very solid presence in these movies. She's in another movie that's in my top 100 coming later on. She plays kind of like the lead, I guess you could say love interest in this movie. She's kind of like the mysterious woman, right? That is like may or may not have information for him, and he's chasing her, and she's like being reticent. And ultimately she's feeding him all this stuff about there's this great conspiracy and they're trying to kill me and they're trying to kill you and this and that. And Michael Douglas is basically like the avatar for the viewer. He doesn't know what the hell is going on, and you're along for the ride. And obviously he's Michael Douglas, so he's likable, he's relatable. But what I like about this movie the most, and why it's on my list, is the mood of it. It's all set at night. It's a San Francisco movie, so that's a very cinematic setting and city on its own. But it's all at night. It's all moody. It's all back alleys and like, you know, deserted parking lots and parking garages and shit like that. And I think it gets a little too weird towards the end. Like, he ends up in a casket or whatever. He goes to Mexico. I don't remember exactly what happens. It does get a little out of hand. The twist is, I should read more about it. The twist doesn't seem to me like a David Fincher approved twist, because it does ultimately have a happy ending. But it is about a guy losing his mind in a very, very like Hitchcockian kind of way, but it's more, it's done in the 90s, and I have a little bit of a nostalgia for the 90s, kind of growing up with some of that stuff. And I think it's not talked about as much as some of his other movies. And I think it totally should be. And I think everybody should watch this movie, especially if you like a good mystery, because it takes you for a ride. And even if the payoff is not the greatest thing ever, it makes you question so much along the way, in the way that the best Hitchcock movies and some of those best thrillers would do, of like the kind of classic Hollywood era. And I totally love this movie. And it's a very like dark movie. Everything is like drenched in shadow, and it's noirish in that way. And I like it. And there's conspiracies and stuff, so you can have fun with it. But I love the game.
I feel like the Hitchcock version of the game would be like the main character, they think it's someone else, but then he's caught into the game.
There's always, you're right, exactly. There's always, in Hitchcock, there's always like the mistaken identity thing. Yeah.
It'd be like they got the wrong guy, and he's trying to tell them, "I'm not the guy. It's someone else. I don't want to be in this game." Like, what game?
What game? Exactly. Well, there's that's in this movie. There's a guy, there's a really good character actor that's been in like 300 things that passed away recently. I forget his name, but he plays the guy who works for the company that puts on the game. And Michael Douglas goes to him throughout the movie, and he's like, "Let me out. Like, I don't want to be in this fucking game." He's like, "There's no game. This company doesn't exist. We sell whatever we sell, you know." And then there's a great scene towards the end of the movie where he finds this guy like with his kids or whatever in public, and it's like, the jig is up. Like, I caught you. Now I'm going to get my hands on you. Like, there's no security around or anything. And the guy explains to him, he's like, "Listen, all right, I was just paid by someone else and this and that." And it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And that's a lie. And that's a lie. And that's a lie. And it's all part of the game.
Yeah.
It unravels in a really fun way.
That's what's cool about the premise, right? Because like you can go so deep, because when you start questioning one thing, then you have to question everything. And it's almost like, how deep does this go? You know, like, I don't know, like, you know, like maybe he meets a guy who's the garbage guy, and then like, is the garbage guy, you know, putting stuff, you know, trying to track him or whatever, or.
And then you think that's where it ends. You think you figured it out. It's the garbage man. And then you find out, but the garbage man is in, you know, cahoots with the guys in the van across the street. Yep. And you're like, what are those guys doing?
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a scene, he'll look across the street, and then it's like, actually, he's being stalked by his neighbor. who is someone who moved in. He had to know them or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just like
fun...
that game is so interesting. Like just like whenever, you're questioning everything.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff, like, I feel like the core thing of this is there's so much we take for granted in society, right? Where we're just like, yeah, someone does this for me, someone does that for me. Like, I'm just on the internet all the time. Who's looking at all the stuff that I do on the internet?
Yeah. Because there's so much stuff, like in this particular movie, he's a banker, right? And he's a really high profile person. So and his brother sets up the game. So they have access to a lot of personal information about him. So he gets freaked out throughout the movie of like, how did you know that? Or who are you people? And how do you know this stuff about me? There is a version of this movie that takes place in, 2019 or 2020 that has like think about just the amount of information about you that's out there that you don't really think
Facebook.
About. That's on Facebook, and it's tracked by websites and ad companies and stuff. And I think Fincher is, again, out of all of the directors that were working in the 90s, like, this is the guy that's going to give it the most interesting kind of a take, and not like, it's not just about the plot stuff, but it's all in the delivery of it and like the method of it and the mode of it.
Yeah.
Again, it's very mysterious, and it's very shadowy figures and guys in trench coats and hats and stuff. Like, he knows what he's doing with those images.
Yeah, it's very mysterious. It's very dark. It's very makes you question things. Makes you feel like.
Makes you question reality of just like, wait, is this is fine, right? Yeah,
because that's a fear I think that's secretly like a fear a lot of people have, is that they're basically it's the Truman Show. The Truman Show and this are kind of similar, but it's like, what if you got put into the Truman Show,
right? And
everyone's playing the Truman Show, and you're the show, but you don't know it,
and you don't know,
and you can't get out, and you can't get out.
Yeah, I because the Truman Show, I love that movie too, and I was contemplating putting it on my list, but that's more of like, it's more of like it has a lot more lessons and a lot more morals and things like that, and I like more the straight pure thriller type movies. And I keep saying over and over, I like a simple premise, like a Hitchcockian type of a thing. I like a simple premise that kind of is expanded, and goes from there. And it's not, because this movie, it's not necessarily huge, big budget action movies, whatever. It's not like a Benjamin Button or Social Network or something that has lots of locations and characters and sets, and it's really grandiose. It's really just Michael Douglas in a bunch of alleyways and like cars and shit. But it's shot in a really cool way. So yeah. These are more along the lines of the movies that I really, really love, is something like The Game. Is just a good mystery shot by somebody who knows like the mode and the genre that they're working in. Yeah,
I'm sure that script was like really big at the time.
I think so. Yeah.
Because the 90s was a time where like that was I feel like it was like the 80s or 90s was like the peak spec.
It was for sure. I think it was for sure the 90s, because there were a lot of movies like this, like Deceived and things like that. Well, they'll pick like a lead, like a big name actor, and put him in like his wife was actually working for the KGB or whatever. Like, just stupid fucking premises like that. Her husband dies, and then it turns out he faked his death to have another life with another woman, but also they're chased by the FBI for some reason.
Yeah.
Like Ransom with Mel Gibson. Like a lot of these movies were being made. Yeah, you're right. I think it was the 90s.
What was there was one with Mel Gibson. It was like Conspiracy or something. He was a conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy. Yeah. The one with him and Julia Roberts.
It's like all the helicopters. Like that's like the opening of the movie.
yeah, it's so great. I miss it, because I don't know where these movies go. I think we had this conversation over and over and over again, but where do the mid-tier, you still got some stars, you got some talent attached, but like, where do these movies go? Do they just go to Netflix? Or are these the Netflix originals that we review? But because I feel like those are a lot more finessed and more poppy, and they're done for more mass appeal, and some of these movies were just done for I don't know, like The Game to me feels pure Fincher. He just got to make it, which is lucky, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a film that came out this year. It was a Vin Diesel film where he played. It's sort of like not a big comic book movie.
Oh, the Bloodshot?
Yeah, Bloodshot. Bloodshot is kind of like, I think, because they're going to do a sequel to that. Bloodshot is the future of that kind of movie.
But it's still like great, I guess. I'll take what I can get. I'll take what I can get, but it's still like not necessarily superhero adjacent, but it's still like
it's definitely superhero adjacent.
Right,
Definitely.
but that's what I mean. Like, I think if that's the mid-tier kind of movie, then that's fine. But I preferred, like, in the 90s when the mid-tier movies were not superhero mid-tier movies, like the shitty Hellboy remake we got and stuff like that. I would prefer it if they were just, straight thrillers like this. And there's a lot of, again, now you put it in my head, there's a lot of movies that I can't think of off the top of my head. Conspiracy, Deceived, there's one with Ray Liotta where he like injects himself with the serum where he's able to see the future that I saw. Like, there's so many fucking weird, stupid concept thrillers that came out in the 90s.
Yeah. Because like I feel like instead a lot of it is kind of comic booky because there was another Netflix film, The Old Guard. I don't know if we probably didn't talk about it.
I don't think but I remember you spoke about it, but I don't think we did like a thing about it.
Yeah, I did it with another person for our network.
Oh, there you go.
But again, it's this Netflix assembly line, just spitting them out. But that one's a little bit bigger budget, but that feels in the same kind of mid-rangey. It has stars, it has action, but it's not really. It's not the big budget stuff. If it was big budget, it would have come out through like Warner Brothers or Disney or whatever.
Right.
Well, that's not really Disney, but it would have come out with one of the big 3 or 4 or whatever.
You make a good point. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I think you answered my question. I guess what I'm lamenting is that now the mode that everybody's operating in is like comic booky type stuff, and like a lot of like
the stuff you want is kind of dead. Which
the stuff I want exactly. I want because there felt like there was a revival in the 90s and late 80s of these just pure thriller concepts that would have been made in the 60s or something. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think this stuff is dormant for now.
I feel like the other guy who would do that was like Tony Scott. Tony Scott did a lot of these. Like he would always be able to get stuff with. And he's not with us anymore.
Love Tony Scott, dude.
What was that one where it was like Denzel like had this thing that could see? Oh, was it the future or something? You remember that? Deja Vu. Yeah. Deja Vu, which is just this big high concept thing, and it's like, let's get Tony Scott, let's get Denzel, let's sell this.
Those guys made so many fucking movies.
They did.
Yeah, or like but even then, I mean, Tony Scott was more of like a Jerry Bruckheimer, like action, pumping out the stylized action genre, really, starting with Top Gun and Days of Thunder and all those movies. But like even Enemy of the State is a perfect example of a movie like this. It's Will Smith is an average guy, just like you and me, and he witnesses something that he's not supposed to witness, and now the fucking government's trying to kill him, and whoa, like I love those concepts.
Yeah, I think that's just not as in vogue right now.
It's not. Yeah.
Unfortunately, because I think what's happening is there's a bifurcation, right? We'll make the film that's 1 to 5 million, especially if we can shoot in fucking Greece or whatever, some random place where where the labor's cheap and they're gonna give us tax breaks. We'll shoot in Romania. But there's that, and then there's Disney, Warner, Universal. We're going to make this Jurassic Park movie. Yeah. We're going to make this
properties.
Mm-hmm. They just announced they're going to do another Predator movie through Disney. Yeah, they are. So bringing that back. They're doing Predator 5, I guess, whatever it is.
Didn't we just talk about this last week? How we're never going to see Predator again?
Well, it's going to be a Predator Christmas movie or something. I don't know. I'm joking. I'm joking, but like
you
like the Predator brings them like a
and the next Die Hard movie is like The War with Grandpa. It's just John McClane being played pranks on by his grandkids. Straight to Disney Plus.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. Anyways, I love the game. I'm glad we had to have a conversation about like these 90s like concept thrillers.
Yes.
And we've kind of unlocked the thing that I'm nostalgic for and why it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
For now, I mean, very nostalgic for this stuff.
Yeah, there's always a cycle. There's always a cycle. I feel like if you could do these for like half. So usually they'd be like 50 million, right? But if you could maybe do them for like half that,
Yeah.
and then try and, but like, yeah, I do think you're not gonna be able to do the theatrical stuff, but you could, you could maybe get the big enough name and then flip it to like, again, another one. Coming to America 2 is gonna come out through Amazon Prime.
It is.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
That's a deal that went through.
That's a big get. That's a big get.
And that's a big deal because like that's Eddie Murphy in a legacy property.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So I feel like that's the avenue. And maybe again doing a legacy property, like doing a sequel or like maybe something related to something that already happened. Yeah. Remake or sequel, and then just like kind of get a big name, do it. You got to do it in another country, keep the budget low, and then you got to flip it to Amazon or Netflix or whoever.
Yeah, and I feel like these movies exist. Like, I'm not trying to say that they don't exist because, like, there's a lot of movies again that pop up on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. They'll have like a Jason Momoa in them or someone, and it's like a lower kind of mid-tier, like, you know, he's a cop and he finds drugs on someone or, you know, shit like that. But it's not. A little bit of the mysterious kind of thrillery stuff is more what I'm looking for, and I think I just need to seek it out. It's not coming to me via Fox anymore, or, you know, Universal or however because these were being put out through studios back then.
Yeah, unfortunately, they've gotten out of that game.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess I'll go with my number 75.
Yes.
So this is a Billy Wilder film, Sunset Boulevard. So Billy Wilder was one of the great writers of all time in film history. Like he really, really knew the craft of screenwriting.
Sunset Boulevard is like the reason that like all of the movies that I love exist. Yeah.
So Billy Wilder was good at two things, really. He was good at writing really good witty dialogue that's funny and comedies, and he was good at doing tragedies and tragic characters. There's another film that he did, I think it was like The Lost Weekend, about a guy who's a drunk, and just like, I mean, that film is like, wow, he really like shows how just manic and just desperate this alcoholic guy is. And this film it's a different level of desperation in the main character. He's chasing the dream, you know, the Hollywood dream, but he's not doing it. It's not working for him. And so then, you know, almost in like the Hitchcockian happenstance.
Yeah.
His car's messed up. He parks in front of this massive mansion. He goes in, and it's, you know, this woman who used to be a silent movie star. And she's like, "Oh yeah, write a film for me," and she's gonna pay him an insane amount of money. He's like,
and I'm gonna stop you right there. That still is the most probably quintessential Hollywood kind of fantasy, right? Is that you come to Hollywood, you come to LA, and you're just going about your day, and something happens, and you'll run into a big movie star or a big producer, and you're just like, now I'll make a movie for you, or I'll hire you for this or that. Like, that is everybody's dream and fantasy, and it's like super, super unrealistic and not at all, but like, especially in that like romanticized classic Hollywood way, like this is the epitome of that, I think, in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And this film is so well written. Yeah, it's so well written because it is a tragedy. The guy, and again, William Holden is amazing. We know from the jump that he's doomed, but to see the way it plays out, and it's because he just can't let it go. You know, he can't let the dream go.
Yep.
He can't just, you know, like there's the great scene in the middle of the film where he's at a party, and then someone calls him at the party, and he's like, "Hey, she tried to kill herself," and he's like, I mean, he gets sucked back in, and that's it. That is it. At that point, he was dead.
Point of no return. Yeah.
At that point, he killed himself. He didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's another point too, like when he was like last about to leave her, and he just can't. There's the thing about him is he can't just let it go. He had to get in one last dig on her.
Yep.
And when he did, she was like, I'm killing him. And she shoots him.
Yeah, that's the classic scene that like in every fucking acting class, every directing class, like that's the scene that people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing film. And the fact that he got Gloria Swanson and Eric von Stroheim to be in the film, two people from the silent era who were like big as actors and Stroheim as a director. It all of it is like,
it's authentic. It feels authentic.
It's super authentic. And the thing about it too is like, there's a lot of films like this that are, I'll get into a couple later, films that are kind of inside baseball-y, but like they're about film. They're about, storytelling, or they're about like what it's like to actually exist in this space, how crazy it is, where people don't know and they don't understand what it does to people. A lot of them get too much and people don't understand. This is one where you can actually connect and you understand it, even if you didn't know anything about the Hollywood system or the Hollywood stuff. It's just the story of a guy who has a dream, who follows it and into his destruction. But it's also really, he destroys himself, because he could have just said, okay, listen, I've been lying to you for a long time. I'm not really a great writer and I don't think this is going to work out. So let's move on. But he can't do that. Yeah. He can't do that. And it destroys him.
Yeah. And the reason, and I said, like, this is the movie that basically is one of the main reasons that, like, a lot of the movies that I love exist is because of that classic film noir, like the pathology of these types of characters, the self-destructive thing of like, he's just a guy who's trying to live his life, or he's trying to do the right thing or whatever, but he can't because he's got this like critical character flaw and he can't overcome it. And that's kind of the tragedy of it. I love that shit because it's been done over and over and over and over and over again. But also the style that this movie is directed in, like kind of a big blueprint of a film noir movie. Basically, it's all in here. And like you said, like, you don't necessarily have to be into the Hollywood, like the inside baseball stuff, or care about that stuff, but the style of it, the way that they literally paint these characters, to me, the way the cinematography is, it kind of draws you in. It's like pure movie magic for a lot of people who are not necessarily familiar with movie magic. Like, this is the kind of movie that would like make you kind of realize why you love movies in the first place. At least that's the way I look at it. I romanticize it a little bit because I just love film noir. But I feel like people who don't watch black and white movies, it's black and white, fuck that, I'm not watching it. I think you should maybe give this one a look, because it'll make you realize, like, oh, I really like movies for this reason.
Yeah, Billy Wilder's such an incredible filmmaker. I mean, the fact that the thing about it too is, like, he's not even American. Yeah, he's not from America. So he's a German guy. His first language is German, and he's one of the greatest writers of English language dialogue and English films in history. Like, this guy is really, really good at what he does. He's really intelligent. And he's just so good at, again, Double Indemnity, another one of these kind of tragic.
Oh, I love Double Indemnity.
Yeah, he's so good at making these kind of tragic figures where it's just like, dude, you're screwing yourself. He almost kind of, I feel like he's just like the blueprint. Like, he is
100%. Yeah. In
terms of like the comedies,
polish. The comedies, right. It's like kind of like what is it? Howard Hawks was kind of like, he kind of did both as well. Like, he would do some of the tragedies, some gangster movies, things like that, but also really, really, really good screwball comedies and stuff like that too. So some of these guys were just like really like masters.
Yeah, he's an absolute master, and I feel like this is probably his best film. The Apartment's really good too. Yeah. But yeah, I love him, and this film is incredible on so many levels.
Yeah, the Sunset Boulevard is unfuckwithable.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that's my number. What was it, 75? Right, 75. Yeah,
75.
Sunset Boulevard.
Cool. My number 75. You may have heard of it. Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
El Labyrinto del Fauno.
Yeah.
We talked about this movie very recently. You can watch that whole thing. We don't need to have a big discussion about it. But the way it slots into this list is Again, kind of what we talked about in the review for the movie. It's a fairy tale played like realistically almost. It's a fairy tale that may not even be a fairy tale, depending on how you take things. It's opened up to be able to be watched in many different ways. It's an R-rated fairy tale where the reality of where the fairy tale is taking place is part of it, is what informs it, is some of the grossness that is, like they play off each other. The real situations, with the mandrake root and the feeding it blood and stuff, and the mother and kind of the stuff that happens with the fawn and the fantasy stuff. It all kind of works together. And I believe it's very much Guillermo del Toro's best movie. I don't think some artists, like they're good and they're always going to be good, but there's like that one work that once they get it out, that's kind of like, that's it. You can iterate on that and you can make better different stuff, different stories, whatever. But like your signature, kind of the reason that you got into making movies is to make this one. And Guillermo del Toro in particular, he fucking loves reading books. He loves fantasy. Specifically, he loves fairy tales. He loves monster movies. The concept of like monsters and ghouls and goblins and things like that. And this movie kind of has all of it, and it's all rolled into it. It's rolled into like it's got a historical backdrop that he may or may not feel close to. I don't 100% remember that, but it's as close to a perfect movie as I can fathom, basically, this movie. And so yeah, it's easily on the list.
Yeah, just like you said, this is the movie you think of when you think of him, is Pan's Labyrinth. Yeah. It's all the kind of things he's trying to do: the dark fantasy, the horror, the fairy tale told not in the Disney version, but like the real stuff where people die.
Yeah. And even beyond that, like the way that the mechanics of how it was made, a lot of hand-drawn stuff, a lot of handcrafted sets, a lot of animatronic stuff and puppeteering and full body costumes and stuff like that. Like the real, like it is abundantly clear he loves Creature from the Black Lagoon because he keeps putting Doug Jones in fucking bodysuits, like stuff like that. And it's all kind of feeds into this movie. Yeah, it's a great film.
We did a whole episode on it. People should definitely check it out. We go really extensively into the film.
Yeah, but I love this movie. It's gorgeous. I think it'll work for. I think anybody should be able to appreciate this movie for what it is, and especially if you've ever read a fairy tale and you're like, "That's kind of fucked up. That's for kids." That's this movie.
That's this movie. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth. I think this is one we both like a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at number 74. So my number 74 is another Fellini film. This is Strada. This, these films, I think the last one I talked about was also a little somber and tragic. This is another tragic one. So this is about this woman. I forget like how you pronounce her name. It's like Gelsomnia, something like that. She's just, your typical young woman. And then this dude who's a freaking strongman in a kind of circus kind of thing comes to this woman, her mom, and is like, "Hey, I need this person to come with me." And he says, "Yeah, I'll basically buy her from you for 10,000 lira."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay." And this is like after they've already done a similar thing with the girl's sister who died. So that's the setup, is like, yeah, you're going with this guy and your sister died, but I need the money, so goodbye. and then that's the setup of this movie. And then they go on this adventure where they're both traveling, kind of clown circus.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I remember. I haven't seen it, obviously, but like I remember it being talked about. Yeah.
And it's basically the contrast of this film is like, so she's a very kind of sweet, naive, kind character, and he's a little brutish and hard, and but like she's going about her life and she's learning stuff and meeting new people, and I mean the ending is not happy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is like right in his sweet spot. Talking about these stories about these kind of characters, like they're on the fringes of society, but they, there's these people that have heart, but they're kind of stuck in a bad place, and they're trying to make the best out of the situation. And in the end, we get this sort of, it's bittersweet, kind of like, yeah, that sucks, but that's life kind of thing, where people go on even though bad things have happened. And also, he seems to like clowns and people in the circus or whatever. Like there's always a prostitute or a clown, or they're both. And this one kind of, you get the clown stuff. He must have hung out with a lot of clowns when he was or circus people when he was younger. I thought this film really struck me.
That was a thing, I feel like, for a lot of European, like growing up in those early 1900s, the traveling circus and the troops of like quote unquote like freaks, like that was a thing. So I'm sure that was inspired by something like that.
Yeah, because like there's so much like
in the culture.
How do people end up in those places, right? Like that's
true. It's a fascination with it. Yeah, like I'm thinking of that HBO series, like the Carnivale or whatever. Like there's people have been trying to exploit that story of like how do the circus freaks end up being circus freaks for a long time. But I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, it's it's about like what happens in their family life.
Yeah.
Maybe they just it's like people that become comedians. Like there's something that makes them want to make people laugh so that they get some kind of feeling.
Yeah, or there's just like really passionate entertainers, who couldn't make it in maybe what they wanted to do was like do stand up or do magic tricks or whatever, and they end up in a troupe like this, and they kind of get stuck there. So yeah.
Yeah, this was another kind of like Knights of Cabiria. It's this kind of this odyssey of a character, and you get this. Yeah, the ending is really well done because you're just like you're sad, but I don't know. It's almost like a sad, nostalgic feeling, and it really works.
Cool,
really works. So yeah, that's his La Strada.
Yeah, definitely heard a lot about that one too. Cool. Number 74. That was your 74? La Strada? Mine is the most American fucking movie you could ever hope to make. Number 74 is Rocky. And the reason I say that is because the pure like raw American dream underdog like energy of this movie, like it's just permeates throughout, and but there's a couple of reasons. A lot of people have talked about Rocky. It's very popular. A lot of people have seen it. There's a lot of sequels. There's Rocky 4. A lot of people know Rocky from Rocky 4 or Rocky 3 with Mr. T, or Rocky 4 with the Russians and Dolph Lundgren and shit like that. But again, removed from all of that stuff, Rocky on its own is a very, very like emotional, very kind of personal type of movie. It's about this more or less this like loser type character who we can all identify with. He's just trying to get by in life, and he's working for these weirdos, these loan sharks or whatever in Philly. He's kind of getting involved with the rough kinds, but making a living is tough. And it's just this great, like it's a tale as old as time, right? It's like any other of the stories that we talked about, like the movies that you brought up today, is this guy gets plucked out of obscurity. He's given this crazy opportunity to do this thing that he really loves, and if he succeeds, his dreams might come true. If he doesn't succeed, at least he got to try it, kind of a thing. It's all good in the hood. It's a good feeling movie. There's a lot of, particularly, what I love about this movie, that because Stallone, skyrocketed to fame after this, and he would write and direct many action movies and get jacked and bang supermodels and do cocaine with Arnold Schwarzeneggers and bang supermodels again, and and shit like that. But before all of this, like, he's really relatable and really emotional in this. He had some acting experience, but primarily he's known for writing the script for Rocky and selling it on the basis that he would get to star in the movie. And again, it was lucky, I think, that they got a good director to make this movie, John Avildsen, who would end up making The Karate Kid and other movies like that. he's very like vulnerable, Stallone, in this movie. His acting, his performance. He's not jacked or anything. I love the scenes the most in Rocky. The scenes where he's like alone in his apartment and he's got his dog, right? I think Buttkiss is in this movie. He's got a pet. He's got like a turtle or a lizard or something. I don't remember. A fish. I think maybe it's a fish. Like the kind of quiet, like really moments that humanize him a lot before he becomes this like larger than life rock star type character. You kind of get a sense of like the block that he lives on. We spend a lot of time there. We see the people that are hanging out next to like those barrel fires and singing songs and stuff. And you get this like really kind of like these people are poor and they're living in the city, but like they have their own little kind of corner of life that they've carved out for themselves. And Rocky is the one that is going to make it out, and he's going to make the whole area famous and whatever. And of course, there's a love story along the way with Talia Shire and Burt Young in this movie, in every movie that he was in. But Burt Young in particular, the Paulie, her brother, is a total character. And there's a lot of like almost uncomfortable, like domestic kind of situations in this movie where Paulie's like really, really fucking like he's kind of a piece of shit. But it all, I believe it all serves kind of like the reality of the movie, because it's a very grounded movie. And it's not very superhero, big, larger than life characters. It's just, people trying to make ends meet in Philly, and it just happens to be about a boxer. And, that montage of him, with the Bill Conti music and the running up the stairs is unfuckwithable. It's just movie history at this point. But I like Rocky, and I want to make the point that I love Rocky, not for all of the rest of the Rocky movies, but for that one movie. It's just such pure distilled like 70s filmmaking and like American dream. You can do it if you believe you can do it kind of a thing. And it's just like, it's a little cheesy, but like, I don't know, I guess it's like a feel good story. It's good for forever, I think.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not surprising that the Rocky franchise would end up with the American Rocky fighting the evil Russian guy who takes steroids.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can kind of trace, like the movies are so different, but you can trace it, right?
Yeah.
Rocky as a guy, as the, he stands for, like I said, like the American dream, right? And if he represents that, then you trace it all the way forward. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy who fights the Russian.
He has to fight the Russian evil guy. Yeah, it's great. I like this movie for sure. It has become quite a franchise, and it's not over. It is not over, and it's probably not going to be over for a while, as long as they can, keep finding new ways to make it interesting. Creed was a good kind of jump off point.
Yeah, Creed was awesome.
Yeah, and I think he gave a great performance in Creed. Stallone.
No, Stallone. Well, that's the thing is like I don't know if he did it to himself or anything. I mean, granted, I'm sure he's enjoying his riches, but Stallone was at one point a really, really honest writer and filmmaker and actor, and then he just turned himself into this like monolithic being. That's why I think Rocky, the first one, is the quiet one that is like just more of a really good movie. And of course it won Best Picture and it won a bunch of Oscars that year.
Yeah, that one's like the purest of the story, right? It's just the story. It's not the other pizzazz and the the usual craziness that comes
all
with
the crazy Hollywood stuff. Yeah,
this is the Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, this is more or less like an indie movie. Yeah,
and it's there's so much stuff I love about this. Like one of my favorite scenes is like when it's the Apollo Creed's entourage. They're like doing some stuff. Like basically he's a rich guy and he's dealing with endorsements and stuff. And then someone's flipping channels and they see Rocky beating on like some fucking meat in a locker, and he's like, dude, and he's not paying attention. He's like, dude, this guy is like, well, we're out getting money. He's out working, beating on fucking meat in a cellar. Like, you got to take this guy seriously. Yeah. Yeah. I love that scene. And because again, that's an American essential idea.
It's
right?
an essential mentality.
It's an essential thing.
Is if like, you work hard enough and you believe in yourself and you're fucking people hard enough, you can do anything.
Yeah. It's like, as long as you're the one who's grinding and the other guy is out, resting on his laurels, happy that he's rich and fat, you're gonna take him at some point. That's the American sort of
And
idea.
the thing that I don't think is necessarily talked about as much is in this first movie, he doesn't win. He doesn't win the championship. Win. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
It's done in a way that's so brilliant because, you know, this is the classic, like, I think in story terms they call it the need and the want.
Mm-hmm,
I want to win. Because actually what he says, he wants to go the distance. That's actually what he wants. But even if what he wanted was, I want to beat this guy.
Yeah.
But what he actually wants is to prove that he's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he needs. That's the thing that he needs. And that's that feels so much better. It's almost better when you don't get what you want, but you get what you need. Because then you're like, now I know this is the thing. This is actually it.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted this, but I don't actually want it anymore. And when you can like put aside the thing you think you want, but then you find the thing you really need that actually hits you and it fulfills it nourishes your soul.
Yeah,
that's so much more fulfilling, you know.
Yeah, 100%, and like it's all classic, just storytelling stuff. Like it's nothing new and groundbreaking, but it's just done in a really really smart way, and especially at the time, like I love 70s movies, and like this is a very very quintessential like looking 70s movie.
Yeah,
and it's got a lot of people in it that ended up becoming superstars. So. I love Rocky. And again, coming from the outside perspective of like, what is America like? And I only know American culture via movies. This is 100%. Well, it was never not going to make a list like this, because this is one of the movies that I watched, you know, as a kid in Romania. And I was just like, you go to America and you can fucking climb the stairs and then you can do anything you want, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's my girlfriend's favorite film.
Is it?
Half of the reason why we got together.
That's awesome.
In a weird way. Yeah. But yeah, so it's definitely Rocky has a special place for me too.
Yeah, I love Rocky. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going through. We're cruising. We're at 73. So my 73, this is a film I sort of had to reassess how much I really liked it. And I figured out, like, there are some films, like, I was thinking about this list and I'm like, this is a film I like more than I thought that I liked it. And this film is James Cameron's film Aliens. Aliens is so Cameron is one of the great directors of all time. He is a visionary.
Yeah,
he's the type of guy who certain things he understands really well. I think he's really good at sort of taking characters and then sort of changing them in a way that makes us see them in a different light that's original and unique. So he does that in Terminator and does that here with Alien. So I feel like here he really is able to take Ripley and make her super iconic.
Yeah.
Super iconic as like one of the great heroines of all time. This film also, he's taking this, you know, in the first film we see one alien and it kills a bunch of people. That film was really a horror film. This film is a bit more of an action film, but there is some horror suspense moments.
This movie is responsible in not by itself, but it's one of those movies. I'm just going to interject real quick that, like, yes, you can say it's a horror film because it follows Alien and it's got horror like elements in it and it's got a lot of tension. But this is, I feel like, is the first kind of movie in like a big like pop culture way that like blends the genres. You've got the horror and the thriller and the action in there, because there's a lot of action movies nowadays that have a little bit of that like thrillery kind of tension stuff to it, or like horror action. There's a lot of horror action now, and I think Aliens is largely responsible for that, because honestly, it's just a bunch of meathead rah dudes shooting bugs, you know. But you're like, you know, James Cameron is able to give it this emotional core that kind of elevates it, I think. But
yeah, Cameron's just like able to figure, like, he's also like really good at depicting military people. That's sort of an underrated thing. Like he does that a lot, very, very, very well. I don't know what it is. Maybe he knows people, or he just is very good at research. But he's able to.
They're humanized, kind of. I mean, they're
the thing that comes to my mind is that he's able to like kind of get at the culture very well, and a lot of it has to do with the lingo, the way they talk, the way they act. Because this film, like, it's just a bunch of, like you said, it's a bunch of Marines and Ripley, and the center of the story is Ripley sort of, you know, basically what we find out is she's been gone for years. and then they find her, and she's outlived her child. Her child on Earth is dead.
So smart.
Yeah,
because
then,
it all feeds the theme, right?
Yeah, and it all feeds the theme, and then it's like, oh, she finds this girl who's alone on her planet, and now that sort of she's found a new way to fulfill herself.
Yeah,
that motherly instinct kicks in. Oh, and by the way, she's fighting a queen alien.
Yeah.
So it all fits. It all fits together.
Yeah.
And again, like, there's so, like, gotta talk about Stan Winston, right? Who's one of the greatest, one of the greatest film people of all time, who creates all of these practical effects, creates the queen alien and the other aliens. And I think I wrote it down, but I forget the workloader. That massive kind of mech suit thing.
Yeah. It's so fucking iterated on, so iconic, that mech suit. You know, you see it's so parody to death. It's so amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. And like, you know, only Cameron and like is someone who's like, we got to do this way. You know, like he really uses force of will to like create these things. The other thing too is like, again, the stuff he does with the Marines is so incredible. I mean, just like the character Hudson. There's so many characters that are just like so forgettable, and Hudson is just a side character who dies, and he's like, he just says more than he's just more memorable, we get more of a feeling, is more realistic than protagonists in other movies. He's just a dude who's sent on a mission. He's like, we're fucked, we're dead. Yeah, we're dead.
Especially at a time where like a lot of these movies were being made like with, you know, just about like army dudes or whatever, or like platoons going out to take out whatever, like Chuck Norris movies were being made, and you know, Navy SEALs, things like that. Like to be able to make characters out of those people that are really just there is like little pawns in the screenplay that you have to just knock over every once in a while. You're right. Like it is a feat to make them interesting.
Yeah, it's so impressive. And you know, again, just like all the stuff he does with the script and the characters, like there's a core character thing threading through it with Ripley. It's not just like, it's Ripley and therefore we should care. We care because he makes his character, does a good job of it.
It's the motherly thing. Yeah, it's the smartest thing. And like you said, it's part of the reason why Ripley went on to become like one of the biggest icons, is not necessarily because of the first film, because like that could have been, I mean, it was, but like it was a big deal that it was a woman who outlived everybody and ended up killing the alien in the first movie. But like it gives her that like iconic status of like this like ultimate protector who's going to do anything, and you know, she can overcome whatever, you know, to because of her motherliness. I don't know, like that's kind of the theme of this movie, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this film is why we know about Ripley as one of these big great characters in fiction.
Yeah,
because in this movie she stares down a queen alien and throws it out of the airlock.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Yeah. I love this movie. I think it's really amazing, and you know, it there's some disturbing stuff. Like we don't really, you know, again, before this he does a lot of higher level world building too.
Oh yeah.
All we've seen before this was one alien that kind of was in the shadows killing people. In this film, we see where they come from. We see more of like how they operate, and they're intelligent. They're not just like random little.
He opened it up. He opened it up a lot.
They're very intelligent. They work it's just, and it makes them more frightening because like if you run across this thing, if you're unfortunate enough to run across this species, they will obliterate you.
I don't want it.
And this just totally makes you confirm like this is one of the great evils in any possible universe. The other thing I like too is like the villain of this film, again, is the company.
Yeah,
the company is always the villain because Ripley's like, let's nuke them from orbit and let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And it's Burke. Burke's like, oh no, blah blah blah. We can't do this. We can't do that. And Burke tries to stab him in the back. And there's a great line, like, you don't see them fucking each other over for percentage. But people do. The company does. Because it's all about, you know, the company is the great evil. Yeah. Wayland Yutani.
I love the Weyland-Yutani stuff. I love Bishop. Bishop is introduced in this movie. I love because all of these things are in the original, but you just have to really, really work for it, like third or fourth viewing type of stuff, because it's all like on the computer, on the mother, like they talk about it. It's in the newspapers. It's in like the stuff that they have on them, like the Weyland-Yutani stuff is in the first movie, but it's not really talked about because that's not really what the movie's concerned with. So I love that he was able to keep it in that world and not make shit up, but just build on top of that. We had Ash, the android, in the first movie. So then he's like, why wouldn't they just have androids for everything? So there's Bishop, here's the engineering android, and this and that, and whatever the fuck it was. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's just cool that he's able to build and build and build on what is essentially somebody else's thing. I don't know if I told you the story. I read, or I think it was in one of the commentaries for Terminator or something, where he was at this stage where he was just like writing scripts for studios, and he was going to write Aliens, and then he got called up to write Rambo, First Blood Part 2. And he was having an absolute moment of crisis because he was so busy and overworked, and he was trying to get Terminator made, and he was in a motel room, and he called his producer or his agent or whatever, and he was like, listen, you got to help me decide which one do I write. I can't do both. And then his agent is just like, you shut the fuck up, you buckle down, and you write both. And then he did. And then, that's where we are today.
Yeah, because he wrote Rambo 2.
Yeah.
He did a lot of stuff. I mean, he, and again, when I got into this deep dive on Terminator 2, he wrote that very quickly because the rights had been splintered off with a bunch of people, and then the people who owned it didn't want to do a sequel. And then finally it's crazy. Like, basically, the guy who was a producer for Arnold bought the rights, and then a producer was like, okay, Arnold, I'll pay you with a Gulfstream jet to do Terminator 2.
Is that why Terminator 2 is like so fucked up and in limbo and like is now owned by Lionsgate or something?
It's a dude, like the company that I think owns it now is it's a European company.
It's a Studio Canal, isn't it?
Studio Canal, yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It is absolutely like, what? Studio Canal? What?
Yeah.
So yeah, he was in a weird place for a while. Before he became James Cameron, right?
I feel like you come on the scene with the back-to-back Terminator Aliens, you're James Cameron. Like at that point, the world is yours.
Yeah, the world pretty quickly became his for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's so like he's a master of certain.
And it's worth noting. I mean, we can talk about Aliens for 3 hours, as far as I'm concerned. But like, it's worth noting that like James Cameron, he's a great writer. That's not to be diminished, but like also he's got his background in like Stan Winston type of stuff, like actually building the shit and the sets and animatronics and things like that. I believe he was like a fly on the wall during Star Wars or something like that. Am I remembering that wrong?
I don't know. That sounds more like Fincher.
Okay. It just sounds like he was. I know he was involved with, maybe it was Roger Corman stuff. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was involved in some of the like, art department stuff on other big movies before he got to make his own movies. Yeah,
he's a super intelligent guy. Like, just straight up, like, he is a super smart guy. Like, he's like the 3D technology that he used for like Avatar and stuff, he invented himself.
Right. Yeah.
So like he definitely.
Well, he's the guy who just fucking took a camera to the bottom of the ocean. So yeah.
Yeah. He's he was production designer for some of the early stuff, like in the 80s, early 80s. And then there's the fun stories about like when he was hired to do Piranha 2, and then the guy fired him. And so it was
Corman stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it might have been Corman. Probably. He probably, like, there's like back in the day.
There's so many guys that came out of the Roger Corman school. Yeah.
Or even like, I think it was like Dino De Laurentiis or people like that. There were these guys who, you just work for them. And
yeah.
I think there was a guy who used to teach at DVC, and he said, I work for Corman.
Like, there was a guy who taught at San Francisco State who was like, I work for Corman.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many of them. Right? So like on the Piranha thing, like he he did a bunch of stuff and they fired him, and so then he broke into the guy's house and edited it after the guy was asleep or whatever.
That's the kind of like, as much as you want to say like, who are your favorite directors? I'm going to be just like them. I couldn't do shit like that. Like it takes a certain kind of moxie to be a James Cameron. Like there's no way I could break in someone's house to fucking steal a movie from them.
He's an absolute maniac.
Yeah.
He's an absolute maniac. And just reading all this stuff about him. Like I was reading another thing, Stan Winston was creating. So like in Terminator 2, they have this scene where the mech steps on a skull. Mm-hmm. And so he was making the skulls that were going to be stepped on. And he was like, oh, how many should I make? He's like, oh, I'll do like 10 takes. So he made 26 of them. And you did 26 takes of this thing stomping on.
Good.
So it just shows you like this guy there's something about him. Like there's something about him where he is so perfectionist, but like he is a master. He is an absolute master of the craft of storytelling. Yeah. And when you give him like the way he's able to sort of bring to life a concept and do the world building and show you all of the possible outlets of that idea, he always does it to the nth degree, and it's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good marriage of like the writing side and specifically the world building side is what he's so good at, with the practical stuff of being a director and making this stuff. It's like a singular talent kind of a thing. Yeah. There's just so many things that we think about the Alien franchise and the Alien, the Xenomorph, that come from this movie, that come from him, that come from what he did to build it out. It deserves so much credit. I almost think that we take it for granted. We kind of take it for granted how much is put into this movie that we just. It's the mythology. It's like canon, you know. Yeah. You mean as Alien fans, or just as like movie blockbuster fans? I mean just movie in general. When you think of when someone thinks of the Xenomorph, the Alien, there's a lot of stuff that came from this movie that just is in their brain, even if they've never seen the movie. They think of the Queen. They think of the people, you know, like in the hive where the eggs are, and then they get the auto rifle. I believe the heartbeat sensor was in the first movie, but there's a lot of stuff that came out of these two movies, for sure. And I think Aliens in particular, what is really responsible for is taking a concept as like niche and kind of weird as Alien and just blowing it up to the most mass market appeal possible. Like that is a feat in it on itself. And I think we owe a lot, like all of even the Marvel, the MCU stuff owes a lot to Aliens to be able to bring something like this and make it as because it's a weird fucking niche concept to sell to, your Joe Blow who wants to watch a love story or whatever. Like Aliens is an event kind of a movie. And I it's a huge deal. Yeah, because like this is an R-rated action movie. Exactly. This is not some like kiddie cartoon cutesy. Oh hi, it's a little. We're here to stop the xenomorphs. No, it's like these are murderous, disgusting things that will burst out of your chest, and then they are smarter. They're basically just as smart as human beings. Yeah. It's so smart. So smart. This movie, the way it builds on the original, that's my 73 Aliens. Cool. James Cameron. Yeah, my 73 is a pretty big one too. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Yeah. And I was going back and forth. I was just like, there's a lot of Kubrick movies that I really, really like, and which ones do I put on here? But ultimately, like, I can't not put The Shining on here. And specifically, the reason is because we talked about Shining. Like, if you want to hear us for whatever goddamn reason talk more about this, the Dr. Sleep review, like, we went really in depth on this stuff. But The Shining in particular, I had to make the list because, well, A, Jack Nicholson. But B, I mean, there's so much mythology about this movie and the making of this movie and stuff. But I think what it ultimately accomplishes for me personally, and the reason that I love it so much, is the Kubrick stuff. We talked about this. There's the big conflict of this movie is the Stephen King stuff, which is a little more fantastical and a little more plotty, and the Kubrick stuff, which is just
fucking immaculate like framing and like psychological it's stuff done to manipulate you into like a false sense of security or whatever the case may be. I don't know if it's because I grew up so as like a single kid, like just had like a lot of single kids, sorry, only child, I should say. I had a lot of time to myself to just fuck around and by myself and explore spaces and places and stuff like that. The idea, the stuff that I like about The Shining is just the kind of just exploring the overlook, like when Danny is just kind of riding around and just looking at the stuff. It's a big space, but there's only 3 people in it, or so we think, you know. And then there's all these like weirdos like what coming in and out of reality, and you just really don't know what to think. And I think it's smart for. Again, I like it, but I think what Kubrick did is he didn't really explain any of that stuff up front. He just kind of let it happen and play out for a while. The stuff that I don't like about The Shining, and the reason it's not like higher up on my list, is when the Stephen King stuff comes in and Scatman Crothers comes in. And he's like, "You got the shine," and he's like trying to explain that like you can see into other people's eyes and shit like that. Like, I don't care about that stuff at all. I don't care at all about, you know, sticking Jack Nicholson in the freezer and while they go out and do whatever Scooby-Doo shit that they do. I don't care about that stuff at all. But like the images of like that one of the dude getting blown in the hotel room, and then the guy comes up and looks at the camera. There's just, it's so intelligent and so freaky that I can't not love this shit. And Stanley Kubrick takes a page from Hitchcock. He very much abides by the you have to have contempt for your audience kind of thing, and he does. And he doesn't care, and he just lets it hang out for a long time before he explains anything. And I love that about this movie.
It's one of the great horror movies of all time.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's because he sets a mood, he sets a feeling, and it just persists and persists, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then there's just a bunch of scenes that play out where you're like, where's this gonna go? I remember there's a scene where Jack calls Danny into his room. He seems a little off kilter, but you're like, you know, is he gonna kill him?
Yeah, and like ultimately, it's supposed to be like a heartfelt, like an apology scene, right? It's like kind of like a "I'm sorry, I hurt you." Is it that scene? But like, it starts out being like, "Is he gonna break his other arm?" You know?
It just you're like, I don't feel right, you know. It's just, and that's what you constantly feel. You feel trapped. Feel off, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And it's all done through the filmmaking. That's kind of the thing I want to take away from this, and the reason that I like it so much is that we're not told like, you know, like there's not people talking off screen or about Jack off screen, and they're like, you know, he's really kind of lost it these last couple of months. You know, he hurt Danny. You know, like it's just, you just kind of get the sense that like, you know, it's icky.
Yeah, and then it's a great film, and you know, again, Stanley Kubrick. What's so great about him is he's probably maybe the greatest of all time in terms of framing and composition of film. He is. Yeah, his shots are immaculate. They are basically perfect, and they are so iconic, cinematic. Yeah, like there's so many shots, just like the Steadicam shots, just like the way that he frames
the way that the lobby itself is framed, you know, with the typewriter and the stairs, like you can close your eyes and you can see it. Yeah. A lot of zooming too in this one. A lot of zoom lenses. I love zoom lenses. I love that because it clearly, I mean, the movie came out in 1980, but clearly it was made before that. It was made in the 70s, and it's got just that little bit of that tail end of the 70s in it.
Yeah, zooming in, zooming out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And just like, you know, just that carpet. Like there's just so much about it that's, you know, can't get out of your head.
Yeah, the psychological aspect, like in the same way that like I like the game and stuff like that. I really like when the filmmaker digs into the main. It fucks with the viewer, and I like being fucked with in that way.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's a great film
for sure.
Hated in its time, but now.
It's again every single time is just like people talk about Scarface, and then I read shit about Brian De Palma, and he's just like, I lost a lot of opportunities for making that movie. So I
That's
lost a lot of money.
unbelievable.
Yeah, people fucking hated Scarface,
That's
dude.
unbelievable.
They hated it. But we can talk. We'll talk about that later.
That's gotta be frustrating.
Yeah,
because that movie is like fucking P. Diddy watches that movie on repeat.
It's hilarious. There's a great piece that was made in like the mid or to late 2000s where like they got all these like rappers and entertainers and influencers to talk about Scarface, and they're like, Scarface is Bible. Like it's every hip hop lyric. It's in every wannabe gangster's fucking, there's a poster of Scarface in his house. So yeah. But anyways, it was just weird, underappreciated in its time.
Yeah, it'll be fun to talk about that one when it comes up.
And it will.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about my number 72. A very kind of interesting mid-tier director that I like a lot. I like a lot of his films, and this is definitely my favorite, Edward Zwick.
I love mid-tier directors. Hell yes.
Edward Zwick makes some fun movies.
And he makes some big ass movies too.
Yeah, makes some big movies.
Yeah.
So this was like a massive movie, Glory.
Yeah.
So this one came out in late 89.
Mm-hmm.
The cast was insane. So Matthew Broderick in the 80s when he was big.
Yeah.
Denzel, Carl Elwes when he was big, Morgan Freeman and Andre Braugher. This cast was crazy for the time. And so basically the story is this guy Robert Shaw. He's leading the first all-black volunteer company, and so it's about these guys. They have to deal with you're fighting in the army, and you're dealing with prejudice in the army as well as the fact that they're fighting the South, which is trying to keep them enslaved. And this is just this is an epic, incredible film for me. That's all that I can say. It's an epic, incredible film. The cast is incredible, and you're just there's something about it's rare to find films like this where you get all these guys that you really you just care about. I care about these characters, and
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and you're seeing them in this epic conflict, and I mean
you're
Denzel,
with them.
And Denzel is incredible in this movie. The battle scenes are just so well done. I mean, Zwick is really good at this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
he really depicts these action scenes well.
Very underrated too, because some of the big, because you don't really think about it. You think of obviously you think of big movies, you think of your Ridley Scott's or what have you, but it takes you got to have a ringmaster who is able to hold all this stuff together, and he got good performances too.
Yeah, I mean, Denzel won a Oscar for this movie.
Yeah, well, after that fucking speech, you're hard not to recognize, right?
Yeah. Also the tear when he's getting whipped. I feel like that's why he really won.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's incredible, and I don't know. I love these kind of. I love epic films. I love films that deal with war like this. This film's also it's not the cutesy rah. Hey, we're the way that we deal with World War II. This is some bleak shit.
Yes.
but it's, I don't know. I think it does a good job of because the thematic thing is they're fighting for something. These are people who are volunteering to fight for their own freedom, and basically it's they're willing to die for it for real.
Yeah. And
that's what they do at the end here at this film is they go off into this bunker or whatever, and they get blasted, and it's an incredible scene when they charge that bunker, and they don't come out, but it's it's the full kind of, I don't know, it's just so amazing because they're really kind of struggling to really in the movie be, war is hard, and that's what this movie does well. It shows that war is it's not a cutesy game for fun.
Right.
It is death.
Right.
It is struggle. It is pain. It is horror.
Yeah.
And these people volunteered to be in this horror, but they're doing it for a bigger thing, and so it's able to show you both. And in the end, they all die, but in the end, they got freedom. That's what they were all fighting for, was to make sure that there was freedom in the United States in the future. And in that case, it's sort of a celebration of their sacrifice.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool. I'm glad that you brought this up. I'm glad that I didn't know you liked it so much. That's cool. I like this movie a lot too. And it gets put often in this canon of like these epic Hollywood movies about real conflicts. You know, it gets put in the canon of like, or something with like a socially conscious message, right? Like you got Glory and Dances with Wolves and fucking Braveheart, Gladiator, like a lot of these movies that are kind of like historical epics made like in the modern day. But I think Glory is like kind of different in the, like you say, like it's the bleakness of it. I think is what I remember of it is like the kind of more grounded approach instead of the like grandiose epic feeling to it. I don't know. It's a cool movie. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I saw this great discussion. It was Damien Chazelle, the guy who did like La La Land and Whiplash, some other films. He's like the guy from our generation who actually made it.
You pretty much, right?
Pretty much, he's the only one.
The fucking musical guy, yeah.
He's the one guy who's made it. But so he was on this. They have I think it's a Hollywood Reporter. They do these kind of they get a bunch of famous people together.
Oh, like the round tables. Yeah.
They had a round table. It was him and Denzel and some other people. And he talked about watching this as a kid. And he said he was blown away to see everyone die at the end. He said it really like changed. It changed the way that he viewed. He was like, I didn't know you could do that. That's what he said. He was like, the little kid version of him was like, wait, you can kill everybody? All these people I love, like they can just die? Yeah, it has that power because like, you know, you really are invested.
And you're hanging out with them. It's a long movie. It's like almost 3 hours or something. Like you're hanging out with these characters and you're really invested. And it's hard not to invest in their struggle, right? Like it's almost impossible. Like you have to identify with it. So yeah.
Yeah, and you know, like the one shot I'll always remember is like they're doing this charge, and it's such a kind of beautiful moment because like there's so many of them, like Andre Barr, he plays this character who's like he's basically a nerd. And he's a nerd who like, yeah, I'm gonna you know fight the goddamn Confederates, which you know definitely an honorable thing. And then you end up in a war, and it's like, dude, what the fuck? But like you have to like push past that.
Yeah.
And you see him, he does it, he pushes past it, and they're all just like, they have this war charge, and they're like screaming, and it's amazing. And then they fucking go around a corner, and there's a dude waiting with a cannon, and it just blasts them.
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, the cannon. Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's life. Like you're like, I'm there, and you turn around, it's a cannon. And you
dude, I forgot about that shot. I love that shot so much.
That shot is so powerful, dude. Because they're like running, they go around a corner, and there's a literal fucking cannon waiting for them, and they get blasted. But it's just that end scene, that battle where they charge that bunker it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And yeah, this film's great. I loved it the minute I saw it, and I think it's a really good one.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm glad you put that on your list.
Cool. Yeah. So, that's my number 72. So,
cool. My number 72 is in the once again we're taking it back to the 90s and to the alleyways, not necessarily alleyways, but like into the kind of grimy, gritty shit, but with an artistic twist. My number 72 is Léon the Professional, and it's unfuckwithable. This movie, it just is. And I think I'll just talk about what I love about it more than just having to explain to you what Léon the Professional is. It's basically every story, like now especially, I feel like they're churning these out in like every fucking premium cable show. Like every Showtime show has got to have like the gruff old man with the young apprentice, and they come from different backgrounds and they have to figure out a way to work together because they're stuck by circumstance or whatever. It's kind of that. It's you got Léon, who is an assassin, and he basically takes in this girl after her family is murdered. And there's so many great scenes in this movie. And what I like about it, like a lot of it takes place in an apartment building in New York City. I believe it's New York City. I could be wrong, but it's got a little bit of like it's directed by Luc Besson. So he's got like something like there's something about his like directing style, this like French kind of lot of wide angle lenses and like crazy camera movements and stuff like that. I love the setting of like setting a lot of the violence indoors. I like that a lot about this movie. Like the scene where, everybody in that family gets murdered and the camera just kind of like moves through the rooms, and Gary Oldman is in this, and he is just I mean, it's just Gary Oldman dialed up to 11. He's just like unfiltered. They take off all of the training wheels and they're just like, fucking go for it, bro. And so there's a lot of reasons to like this movie. And I think it did a lot too for the action movies, like the stuff that we still see today, like that siege at the end of the movie where the SWAT team is coming in and they're rushing the apartment building, and it's like this great like epic thing, and there's like smoke bombs and like Léon's trying to make it out and stuff. And I don't know, I'm rambling at this point. I really love this movie, but specifically what I like about it is obviously the relationship between Léon and the girl. I don't forget what her name is in the movie, Natalie Portman. That's interesting. I like that he almost went there with the whole like she kind of falls in love with him thing. A lot of people get weirded out by that, but I think it makes sense. Especially since this girl did not have the best kind of home life to begin with, and then her entire family's fucking murdered, and this guy's like her guardian angel, right? Her father figure. That's not a leap of logic in my opinion to see that she falls in love with him, especially she's like, I don't know, 12 years old or whatever. She idealizes this guy and he's a piece of shit, right? Because he's an assassin. There's some crime elements to this movie. There's some like Goomba, like, hey, what the fuck, you got my money, like so it has all of these elements of all of these movies.
Danny Aiello, he recently died this year. He died this year.
Was that a 2020 death? I thought
it was either this year or last year.
Yeah, I believe you. Either way, like it's a real shame, but like real kind of classic. Okay, yeah.
It's December of last year.
God damn it. But yeah, a lot of it's got a lot of those elements, a lot of those crime movie elements. With again, like the twist is the relationship between these two characters. But again, I like a lot that a lot of the movie takes place either on the street or inside this like dilapidated, dirty old apartment building. And those are the types of locations that I really like. And a lot of the violence goes down inside the hallways and inside the rooms of these apartment buildings. And everything gets shredded. Everything gets blown up in this movie. Yeah. So yeah, it's a classic for a good reason. And Jean Reno, probably the most under fucking appreciated actor ever. I mean, he's done a lot of like French movies after this, and I've seen him in a lot of like straight to DVD stuff, but I think he should have been a lot bigger and like more. I mean, he was in Ronin with Robert De Niro.
I think what screwed him over was stuff. Then when did this come out?
94.
Yeah, so then he got caught up in that Godzilla shit. I think that fucked him over, to be honest.
You're right. I forgot about Godzilla.
Yeah, that Godzilla just like torpedoed. Roland Emmerich got out of it fine, but I think everyone else took a hit. I think Broderick took a hit. He took a hit.
And Jean Reno, he's so good in Mission Impossible too, the first one.
Yeah,
so good in that movie. So he's. Yeah. I think this is one of those movies like before kind of everything imploded and everybody got big, and Luc Besson got really big and he made Fifth Element, and Natalie Portman became Natalie Portman, and Gary Oldman became fucking Gary Oldman. Like this is again like this scaled back kind of honest crime movie, and I really, really, really like it.
Yeah, it's great. Like you said, like Gary Oldman is just a force, man. He is so incredible of an actor. Another thing that comes to my mind is he has a very brief role in True Romance where he's like a cracked out.
He plays the pimp.
Yeah, cracked out pimp dude with gold teeth, and he's like he can do anything.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, he's so incredible, dude. He's like again, like we're talking about Robert Pattinson, just like this guy. You give him, and he will create the character.
Yeah.
Just let him do his thing. He's amazing in this. And yeah, Luc Besson, the first thing I ever saw my dad was a big fan of La Femme Nikita. And so I saw
that movie too. Yeah.
This feels, I mean, basically it's like that film is his character. He's in that movie, The Professional or whatever.
Yeah.
They hire him, and then they do a hit, and then it's like, we got to dispose of the body. He comes and he like takes care of it. This is like his solo movie.
This is a solo movie. Yeah, exactly. This is the solo movie with about like the character of this guy, more so than like just some of the plotty shit that was going on in the other movie.
Yeah, Besson. This is Besson at his best, and he is he's a talented guy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And as a writer, I mean, he is single-handedly responsible for all of the fucking. He's got his own empire of like he wrote Taken. He wrote Taken.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say.
Taken. When I was, me and my friend would see every one of these. The Jason Statham, whatever that was called, the Transporter.
The Transporter movies. That's right.
Yeah.
He wrote those too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a machine. He is a machine. I mean, I feel like he's kind of, for a lot of reasons, he's kind of over. I didn't like I didn't like the newest thing he did. I didn't like that.
I don't know. I don't even know. We could talk about that movie, but yeah, I saw that one in theaters, and it was just kind of like it was such a simple, like it was such a like the setup was so easy. All you have to do is just hit the ball, And that movie just kind of folds in on itself a couple times where it doesn't need to. But yeah.
But yeah, this is him at the height of his power. I really like, probably The Fifth Element is probably my favorite, but this is probably the best film he's done.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like The Fifth Element, and it's not going to make my list. Spoiler alert. Because for me, what I really like is these intimate location based kind of movies, and because we spend so much time in these buildings and on the streets, it gets a layer of grit that builds up on it that I really, really like. And there's some, again, like all the fucking thank you, your Jason Bourne movies, check. Like they all have to thank this movie in one way or another.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And Natalie Portman's amazing. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for her, like, this sort of plays to a certain type of person who they have problems, and so then they exuded that energy onto her. Like she she had to go away from the world until she was like, I don't know, 16 or 17 or whatever. When she did, however old she was when she did the Star Wars movies. Yeah. Because she would get letters from creepy ass dudes. Yeah. Just pretty much forever. Unfortunately. But she is a great actor. She is an absolutely amazing actor. And you can see even at this age, she was professional and just like high level.
No, this movie absolutely falls apart without Natalie Portman. Yeah.
Yeah, and they found the person who, there's always sometimes that person that they have acting in their soul.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, the guy from E.T., the guy, they sometimes you find them and they just, I mean, that's amazing to think of someone that young who can emote on command.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, River Phoenix comes to mind too.
Yeah. River. All the Phoenixes are what's the actors at least, they're
true.
They kind of that's their family profession.
They've got that gene, whatever it is. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay, so we're at 71.
Yes, sir. Last one.
So my number 71 is a incredible noir film. Rewatched this recently. It is unbelievable. Sweet Smell of Success. This film is unbelievable, honestly. I think this is like one of the most well written. I think this film has the most sort of witty, dry, kind of sharp biting dialogue of any film ever. I really do. I think that the writing is incredible, the directing is incredible, the acting is incredible. So it's basically Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. The film is about this guy. He's called was it JJ Hunsaker? Pretty much just imagine ironically that guy now would be like I forget what that guy's name was. It was Paris something. He was this blogger who like had all these connections with all these connections with like big celebrities, and so he would just dish stuff on his blog.
Was it Perez Hilton?
It was Perez Hilton, yeah. He's like the Perez Hilton of his time, but like more just like, but not like a goofy weird dude, like an actual power hungry guy who has this media empire, and he uses his media empire to either help or destroy people. And in this film, pretty much he has this weird kind of Tony Montana thing with his sister, and he doesn't like the person she's dating. So he hires one of his, he recruits him, this guy, Sidney Falco, played by Tony Curtis, to find a way to break them up.
Oh, wow.
So that he doesn't have to do it. So it's like, yeah, I want you to break them up in some way. And then I'm going to, I'd like take her. Yeah, it's fucking weird. He's like, yeah, and then I'm going to take her on a cruise and we're going to go on vacation. It's very weird, dude. But the main thing is we follow the Tony Curtis character as he's in this underworld, and he is he's a press agent. So he deals with like all these different, kind of Hollywood types, and there's the New York actor or whatever kind of other people that run newspapers or other people that do press or something like that. And so he's going around kind of currying favors with people or trying to manipulate people, trying to a lot of the plot at first has to do with them trying to plant the story. So he's trying to plant the story in another newspaper. And so then they have this plan where he'll plant the story, and then once that happens, the Hunsaker character is going to kind of defend the boyfriend. But when that happens, he expects that there's going to be some kind of confrontation. And so it's going to make Hunsaker look good, but then the boyfriend will look bad. And then she's going to come to her brother.
That sounds like this sounds like a concept that they would have revitalized or reimagined, for like a 90s remake or something.
Yeah. What I love about this film too is like there's this kind of like this idea of like the 40s 50s New York kind of milieu, like the people that talk really fast and they're out on the street and they're hustling, they got the ear on the ground and they know what's going on.
Yeah.
This film nails that. This film is like, that is the universe this film takes place in.
That's cool.
And
they're always like wearing suits and shit.
They're all wearing suits. There's some great stuff. There's this great scene where, basically the villain character is like, he's almost like a thing. Like we haven't seen him. And then the Tony Curtis character goes to this bar where he's at, and he sits down with him, and they have this, and the J.J. Hunsaker character, who's played by Burt Lancaster, who's incredible in this. He's talking with this like senator who's like trying to pretty much kiss his ring.
Yeah.
And so then they have this interesting conversation about, like they're kind of, they're not saying explicitly what they're trying to get out of each other, but it's kind of well known. And then they kind of they kind of like bring up like, oh, who's this guy Tony Curtis? And he has this long spiel. Oh, he's a man of like, he says like something that's like, he's a man of 40 faces. But he's basically a street urchin. He's just trying to like, put a nice face on and take advantage of you so that he can get something. But he's a press agent. He's absolute scum. And he works for me. These are the type of people that work for me. These scumbags. That's what I do. I furry out these scumbags and I send out thousands of them and they go on the street for me. They get information on everybody. And then they come to me and they beg for my power. That's who I am. Wow. Yeah, it's an incredible movie. And it's really like, it's another, again, like in this block, I've talked about a lot of tragedies. This is another tragedy, but it's sort of interesting because it's just tragedy, but the characters are bad. So it's kind of positive, It's fun. So like in the end, the characters we've been following, the protagonists, things don't end well for them, but that's kind of good because they're really scummy. They're really evil. Like they are evil. Like the J.J. Hunsaker character is super evil. And the Tony Curtis character, he's bad, but he's not really evil. But he's kind of going along with this evil guy, so he kind of deserves it. And there's this great moment later on where basically the reason why he does it is like he's given this sort of Faustian bargain where he's like he's told to plant weed on the boyfriend because he doesn't just want him to lose the sister, the girlfriend. He also wants to now punish him. And he has his connection with the police. So yeah, put the weed on him. Yeah, put the weed on him. And then these cop friends I know are going to beat the shit out of him. And that ends up being sort of his downfall. But yeah, it's just it's an amazing film. It's one of the best films I've seen in a long time. And the dialogue is so well done. Like the way they talk.
Like it. Yeah.
The way they talk, like it's that. There's something about that, like New York fast talking kind of guys. That are really witty. This
Yeah.
nails that. It nails it like no film I've ever seen.
Very cool. I know this is one of those movies that's like in the canon of like the great film noir or like noir type movies. So I'm aware of it and it's on my list as well. But yeah, it's the characters that you described, like they're such pieces of shit that like the writing kind of has to back that up, because if they're not interesting in what they're saying and the way they're communicating, then like why are you even watching at all?
Right.
You know, for the situations that they get themselves into. So it definitely I should probably watch this like tonight or tomorrow or something. It sounds fun.
You'll love it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Lucian kind of movie because they're so scummy.
It sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like it.
They're so scummy, but they're so witty. You know, you're like,
mm-hmm.
I kind of can't look away. I love
because
this
if they don't have that wit and that fast talking, they literally have nothing. They're just a bunch of fucking they're wheeling and dealing.
They're just scummy people, yeah. But that's like that's under the surface, right? And but on the top level, we're like seeing these guys who present themselves in such a way, and they have all this power, and they're so interesting, and they're so witty that you're just like, I want to be in this universe more. I want to like experience their
movie.
Oh,
that's cool. I like that stuff. Yeah,
because it feels like it's sort of like, you know, opening the curtain on something that is real for the time, especially like there were these guys who like did this kind of hustling, you know, where they were just like trying to find information and ferrying information and moving stuff around with people. And this just, again, it just nails it. It nails it.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis are totally amazing in this film. The writing and the cinematography is beautiful. It's New York in the like 50s.
Yeah, I'm assuming a lot of shadows, a lot of things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the way they shoot Burt Lancaster is really fun. It's very, very noir. You know.
Sick.
Yeah. So, Sweet Smell of Success, Alexander McKendrick. That's my number 71.
Cool. Awesome. Well, then, I guess that's it. My 71 is a real depressing one. And I fucking love this movie so much. It's Clint Eastwood's Mystic River. And I feel like Clint Eastwood, whether I plan on it or not, ends up every week on every 10. Like, I feel like he's either acting in something or he's directed something. And I love Mystic River so much. I love the way that it's directed, obviously, but the story itself is so goddamn depressing. It's based on a novel, and it's about these three childhood friends who, you know, they're friends, whatever. They have had their childhood together. And now they're all grown up. So the three guys are Sean Penn, Tim Robbins, and not Kevin Bacon. He's one of the FBI. Is he? I think it is Kevin Bacon. Yeah, so those are the three guys. And then Lawrence Fishburne is like another one of the guys. So Kevin Bacon is now like a detective or whatever. Sean Penn is some other kind of big shot. And then Tim Robbins is kind of the one that like never really had success in his life. But the thing that kind of kicks off the drama is that Sean Penn's daughter gets murdered. And it's one of those great things like we talked about when we did our top 10 of the decade. And I talked about The Professor and the Madman. Sometimes Sean Penn just goes places. And I think that's the reason why he won an Oscar for this movie, or him and Tim Robbins, I believe. And sometimes like Sean Penn goes places and he gets so it's like the screaming kind of crying. It's not the weeping, not the quiet, like internal stuff. It is the like, his face is just melting and like the sorrow is like escaping the pores of his very existence. And so that specifically that scene where they find his daughter in the park. And of course, Kevin Bacon's there because he's the detective and, you know, they're friends. And he's like, oh, well, what's going on here? You know, is whatever. And Kevin Bacon has to like come up with a way to tell his friend that his fucking daughter's just, you know, right over there, dead in a ditch. And so there's that scene to kind of kick off the drama. And then we find out that there's a past among these three guys where they were all molested by Catholic priests in Boston, because the whole movie takes place in Boston. So then there's that fucking layer. And then I can't remember exactly what it is, but it turns out there is a misunderstanding. And Tim Robbins is the one that was I think actually Tim Robbins is the one who was molested. He was the one who was selected to be molested. They were all in cars with these priests, but Tim Robbins was the guy who really got the actual like assault done to him. Yeah. And so there's all of that, and it's all of how he's coped with it and stuff. And then ultimately, in the end of the movie, I think Sean Penn's a mob guy, is what it is.
Yeah. He has some gangster connections, and he's using his gangster connections. Basically, the gangsters are trying to find him, and the cops are trying to find him.
Yeah, exactly.
The killer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so basically, for whatever goddamn reason, throughout the process of this movie and unearthing this trauma, he begins to believe that like Tim Robbins is in one way or another responsible for killing his daughter. And that is just having set up that scene with him crying in the park. There's nothing this man will not do to get revenge for or to find out who killed his daughter. Right. And so it's a very tragic ending. It's a very tragic story. And I like Clint Eastwood has a very kind of like invisible style of directing, I would say. Like it's not overly stylized. You can't really point to it and say like, oh, that's a Clint Eastwood movie, or oh, that's the kind of cinematography that he usually goes for. It's very not necessarily dry, but it's very kind of like classical. It's very kind of simple, the stuff. But what he really does a good job at is like telling the stories. I think because I have seen like he's directed 30 something fucking movies and I've seen all of them. So like he does that's kind of like the thing that he's really good at is just kind of putting the camera in a place where you can just kind of take everything in and specifically at this point in his career where he started directing other people, he just like gave it up. He starts to get really like just unbelievable performances from these A-listers. Like he got Sean Penn and Tim Robbins in this movie, of course, Hilary Swank in the next one, $1 Million Baby, Morgan Freeman, so on and so forth. Himself eventually in Gran Torino. But yeah, this is like during the era of Clint Eastwood where like he I feel like he kind of like really matured as a filmmaker. This is kind of like the peak, like this movie, Letters from Iwo Jima, Flags of Our Fathers, like all of that kind of like canon of Clint Eastwood's directing. But this movie in particular I like the most because it's a procedural kind of, it unfolds that way. Like the cops are looking for who murdered this and the mob guys are looking for who murdered that. And it's like a very kind of depressing, it's got a depressing tinge to it and it's very moody. But it's not like over stylized or anything. It's just like it's played very straight. And it's a very cool movie. I love this movie.
I feel like his strength as a director is he especially his approach. He is very sort of friendly for the actor. Like he's trying to get the best performance. He's not going to sort of overdo them. He's not going to make them do 1,000 takes just because he's gonna trust them to give the best performance like right away in the first couple takes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really shows. Like he gets great performances for sure. And he lets I feel like his films the actor is what he's trying to. He's not trying to like do a rhetorical flourish with his directing style.
Exactly.
He's trying to show the actor tell the story.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and especially in stuff like this where you get, like you said, all these amazing A-list actors. Just let them do their thing and just
Yeah, it's similar to one of those like a Birdman situation where like yes, these are the A-list guys that you've seen in action movies and comedies and other things like that, but like they're really, really, really good actors too, and I'm going to show you that kind of a thing. Yeah.
This is
really, really heart-wrenching stuff. Like the ending of this movie is just really heart-wrenching stuff.
Yeah, it's a rough one, but it's a great movie. I feel like this writer who wrote because this was a novel, I feel like this person also wrote like Gone Baby Gone or something like that.
That sounds correct. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, the novel.
Yeah. Good source material from this person. Like they write good stories that really translate.
And the screenwriter for this is Brian Helgeland. I don't know how to say his name. He's a filmmaker in his own right, and he wrote and directed one of my top 10 movies of all time. So it really good talent came together to make this one. But like you said, it doesn't feel like it's up its own ass in any way, shape, or form. Like it's not overdoing it, and it's not overselling the kind of star power. It's just really well acted, and it's played very kind of honestly, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think that covers it.
I think that covers the next 10. Yeah.
Yeah, another 10 in the book. Okay, cool. So we're getting there. All right. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Another 10 of the book. We'll be back hopefully next week to do our next block. And until then, let us know what you think of our lists, and let us know, I don't hope you're like, it's, anything you liked or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's really just like a discussion, an open discussion about like any one of these movies. We're not saying like this is Bible. Like I'm not trying to tell you that fucking if you don't like Leon the Professional, you're scum or anything.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks again, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Peace.